Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, a dimension where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. It's October, and I'm Cole, and that's Jay, and yeah, we love October, and we're happy to be here to give you a whole month's worth of episodes, maybe with, kind of an October theme going on, some darker stuff. Not that that's too different, we'll do that at any point of the year, obviously, but since we have the chance to focus on it, we shall. Um, Tonight's episode could have fit into a few different categories of stuff, including a couple of the series that we did. It could have worked. It could have fit into our new Hollywood series because when we did that one, it wasn't all films just from New Hollywood. We also included a couple that were foreign films that had influenced the movement. This would fit right in there, being 1965, a British film, I guess you would say. It's directed by Roman Polanski, but mostly a British production. We actually wound up sort of filling that spot with Blow Up from 1966, which is a really good movie. And I think I hate to say it might be our worst episode because for whatever reason I was absolutely plagued with technical issues in that movie, and I'm cutting out all over the place, and it's just a mess. So I don't know. I often tell people to watch our past episodes, but I think that episode's sort of a mess to get through. So I don't know. I've tried to watch it before, and it's not too pretty. And of course, this movie also could have fit into our more recent series, The Masters of Film. Polanski was one of the directors that we considered for it, and we didn't add him not because we didn't think he was worthy. It was more just because we already had so many in there. We didn't want the series to go on too long, and we also realized we would get to Polanski eventually. So here we are with Roman Polanski's first English language film, his second overall feature-length film after Knife in the Water, 1965's Repulsion, which starring Catherine Deneuve, who is one of my favorite actresses. I think she's one of the best actresses of her generation. She's an interesting case because she's a French actress, so obviously she did a lot of French and European films, but she always, even from an early age, spoke English quite fluently, but she appears in very few English language movies, this being one of them. Earlier in her career, she's, I think, only 21 or 22 in this movie. Then she's just wonderfully cast for the type of character we're going for. And in some ways, it's a little bit haunting how much she looks a little bit like Sharon Tate.
It's hard for me to get over, really.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, a real similarity there.
mm-hmm.
So, I've often complained about the term psychological thriller. I think it gets kind of overused, and I think there's a lot of films that get billed at it that, yeah, maybe they have a little bit of it, but they don't really seem to fit the criteria for me. This one is one of my absolute favorites that I think absolutely does fit that. It's probably in like the top two that I rant and rave about when I say you want to see a real psychological thriller. I usually talk about this one, and I talk about the anime film Perfect Blue. I think they are both really great psychological thrillers, and they both actually follow very, very different storylines, but some similar things, and obviously having a female lead character, of course, the source of the psychological trauma and paranoia and all that, it's different in each movie. And we also thought this would be a good follow-up since we had just done that film Mandy last week, which also chronicles sort of a descent.
May.
Yeah, sorry, I said Mandy. We were talking about Mandy before that. That's right, May from 2002 from Lucky McGee. This also chronicles, the descent into madness of a young woman, although again, different situation and different results and stuff. In May, it very much explored the idea of a lonely person's struggle to try to make, effective and meaningful connections and relationships with people, and failing to do so, and how the world sort of beats her down and her isolation causing this. This movie is more based on sex, for one thing, which was something that would have made it quite sort of daring and novel for its era, and again, something that the American New Wave and New Hollywood would have fed off of in the later 60s. Yeah, sex is probably, I guess, the main theme in there. There's other stuff though too, I guess.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is not an easy watch for me at all. It's his,
Oh, really?
he does a good job of keeping you, like uneasy the entire time, and especially with the score and some of the camera techniques he uses, um, which they work very well.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
really great little touches like that that really keep you off balance and sort
mhm,
of give you her perspective, put you in her spot. Things like the sound effects being heightened. You hear like a dripping
mhm,
tap or a ticking
mhm,
clock, how it's really amplified, or the sounds from outside. This is a black and white film. Now, sometimes, every once in a while, I do think there are some films that were black and white that, sure, they might benefit from being color. This one, no. This one's great as a black and white film. You wouldn't want to see it in
mhm.
color, I don't think. And very good use of light and shadow. Most of this taking place in a darkened apartment, trying to shut out the natural light of day. This, of course, would be the first in a thematic trilogy uh, of Polanski's, known as the Apartment Trilogy. The other two being Rosemary's Baby and The Tenant, which um, I don't know. Maybe we can talk about those sometime too. Because as I said, I've always been interested in thematic trilogies. I really like I like that concept, and some of my favorite movies are in them. So there's that trilogy. What else springs to mind? There's the one that Dario Argento did. I forget what its actual name is. What's it
The
called?
Three Mothers,
Three Mothers. That's right. So that's so what is that? That's Suspiria, maybe
uh,
Inferno,
Inferno, and
and then a huge jump. The last one
the
came like
the
way later.
oh man,
Anyway,
I don't
yeah.
know, I can't think of it, but yeah.
We'll think of it later. And my favorite of all is the one from John Carpenter, is sort of like apocalypse or apocalyptic
Mhm.
trilogy with the thing. I always forget what it's called. Something Sun. The one
The
about the devil.
Thing, uh,
The one with the
the
devil.
Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness.
Mhm.
That's my very favorite. I love that. So that would be really fun in some time to talk about that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I always like the concept of thematic trilogies as opposed to the narrative trilogies that share a story.
yeah. I actually didn't realize this was a trilogy, but I mean they're very similar, thematically.
Hmm. And structurally too,
Mhm.
very much so. It's funny. I complained a little bit about the structure of May, uh, and yeah, I thought like it's a movie that's about an hour and 25 minutes long, and I felt like it was a little unbalanced. I felt like the first hour didn't have sort of enough interesting stuff, and then things sort of go really
Mhm.
quickly. I feel like this movie's a better balance. I also feel like the build up is just more interesting. I mean, that's just me. Even though kind of you could argue less happens because in May she's going out and she's interacting with more people and stuff. This movie has about, say, not quite a full hour, but maybe a 40-minute build up before stuff really starts to get quirky and weird. But I find all that pretty interesting, even though, again, kind of less happens. She's not doing very much. She's not
Right.
interacting with that many people. But again, it's kind of like what you said. Some of the filmmaking, the style and stuff, just sort of makes it that entertaining, as you said. There's a good use of wide angle lens in this to sort of distort reality. There's some cool
Mhm.
angles and uh, the light and shadow and stuff. So I think maybe just because it gives you some visually interesting and also sonically, audibly, some interesting sounds of sound effect and music to listen to. It makes it a little
Mhm.
bit more interesting and entertaining for me for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's one point when she's having one of her episodes, and it's just drums, like bass
Yeah,
drums.
yeah.
It's very effective.
Yeah. So if you're not the type of person that watches too many, say, more artistic films or foreign films and stuff like this, like you know what you're getting into right off the bat with this movie. It's a black and white film, and it opens with like sort of a somber flute piece playing. We got a close up on her eye, that lingers as the credits roll and stuff. So it pretty much lets you know right off what you're in for. So some people, that's not their thing. They could probably recognize right off the bat. Although if it's not your thing or it hasn't been your thing, I still at least would try to persuade you to maybe give it a chance because I think this is an exceptionally well done movie. I really like this movie. I first saw this movie maybe 10 years ago. And what was weird was, and what benefited me was that I knew almost nothing about it. So it really floored me when I watched it because I honestly didn't really know what it was about or what to expect or anything. So it made for a really good viewing experience. It was one of those, you know, times in your life when you see a movie and you don't know much about it, and it really kind of knocks you off your feet. That's kind of what I experienced with Repulsion. Yeah, it must have been 9 or 10 years ago, something like that.
Mm. Yeah, I was always more of a fan of Rosemary's Baby and The Tenant.
Right.
I don't think I saw this one until sometime after I'd seen those. I mean, Rosemary's Baby is probably like the film he's known for
Hmm.
in you know, more of a mainstream circle,
Sure.
but definitely an art house style director that, you know.
I mean, I love
I
that one
mean,
too.
yeah. I love Rosemary's Baby. I mean, I think it's a really good horror film, but you know, it plays just like this when you realize that she's not crazy. I mean, spoilers for Rosemary's Baby, but you know, when
Yeah.
you find out she's not like totally
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah. It's actually happening.
which you know is kind of the twist because I think you kind of assume that
You think
you're
it's
kind
more
of
of a
on board. Yeah,
yeah, another psychological type thing. She's sort of coming apart with the pressures of having a baby and all this stuff, and then you find out that her paranoia is actually quite real and justified, and there's a weird conspiracy around her, and it's a really cool reveal. Um, yeah, I'm a big fan of that movie, and seeing this movie puts me in the mood to see it. So I'll probably have to watch Rosemary's Baby in the next, you know,
hmm
couple weeks or something. I mean, again, it's the right time of year for it anyway. I've always,
hmm
even though I bow to The Exorcist being like the better movie, I like Rosemary's Baby more. It just appeals to me more.
mm
Like I think The Exorcist is the better film. I think it accomplishes
mm
more, and I think it's more effective in this area, that area. But Rosemary's Baby, I just sort of like its aesthetic, and I don't know about. I mean, they both have like a you know devil type stuff, which I'm a fan of. But I kind of I like sort of the. I guess I like kind of a. If I had an approach to the devil stuff, I like cult stuff more than I like exorcism stuff.
Yeah,
Now, there's some movies that combine the two, and even ones that aren't very good, I'll like because I kind of like that angle. There's a movie from like the '70s that has like I think Karen Black and Tom Selleck that I liked a lot, and it's pretty schmaltzy because in the
mm
'70s that was a big, you know, the devil was a big thing in the '70s. They had a lot of satanic type movies then.
yeah. I've
Oh,
seen
cool.
that.
I can't remember what it's called, but I like that movie. I liked a lot of those, and again, a lot of them they're not very good. They wouldn't stand up as really good films the way Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist would. But you know, it's just sort of a little subgenre that I've always enjoyed. And nowadays, at least I haven't seen too many movies like that lately. There probably are. I just haven't know. I love House of the Devil. That's one of my favorites of recent years. I love that movie. I know people that don't like the movie because there's so much time where like nothing is happening, but I don't care. I still like it. And it's also one of those great movies that evokes a time period so well. Like you would swear that movie was like made in like 1975 or
hmm
76 or something. And they did a really good job of not just making it set in that time, but even seemed like it was a movie that was made back then.
Yeah.
I definitely have to watch that again this year. I have to find that somewhere. It's a movie I'd even buy if I could find it. Tom Noonan, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. He's very creepy.
Um, yeah, I actually got that. They released. This is before this was a thing they did. They released a VHS, a big box VHS for that,
Oh
the House of
wow.
the Devil,
Oh, I'd love to have that. That'd be
with
awesome.
a DVD. So
Yeah.
I've still got that sealed, and I bought the Blu-ray. So it's
Oh, cool.
I'm not the biggest fan of the film. I mean, I like it, but I don't know why I bought all that stuff. I guess I had some dispensable income at the time.
I'll take it off your hands
Yeah.
if you want. But yeah, I don't know. I just yeah, I really enjoyed that movie just because it sort of helped sort of recapture a feel, I guess, from a bygone era. I guess is what I liked
Mm-hmm.
about it. An era I wasn't even alive for, but I've said this before. There's something about like the mid '70s to very early '80s that just has always captured my imagination, even though I was born in '83, where I almost feel like I did live in it. Like I like some of my earliest memories sort of evoke it. I don't. It's really bizarre. Certain music triggers it, and certain things. One of the things that really triggers it for me was in my childhood, like shots of like residential neighborhoods from like the 70s. Two stand out. One is Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. They would often have shots of just like, old style. And of course, I never actually watched the show as a kid, but sometimes I did catch the end of it. And this would be reruns because the show is from the 70s, was All in the Family. All in the Family, its end credits is also that. You get like this rolling piano playing as the credits roll, and it's like a pan across this 70s, like, somewhere in America neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, that always feels like echoes of a life I lived. I don't know. It's really weird. It's something I can't explain. It pops up in dreams, and there's just no other time period that does that for me.
Yeah, I think for film in particular, it's the best decade, in my opinion.
Well, as we said, that was sort of like when the new Hollywood era really kicked in, the early to mid 70s, and just so many films that were just, genre busting, world changing events, in so many ways. But but it's weird. But I mean, it's even the really mundane, small, unimportant things that stand out to me about that, and I don't know why. Again, it's just a weird thing that clings to me. It's like when I watch E.T. and I just look at everything in the background, and it just sort of, I don't know. Again, it feels like a far, far off memory of a world that I just sort of missed out on living. I'm looking at like what the houses look like, and what the bric-a-brac they have around, and the phones and all that stuff. I guess it's because that is my earliest memories, is almost that era, more or less. So I guess that could possibly be why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early 80s could easily pass for the late 70s.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Similarities. But getting back to
little
this
thing,
film,
just the fact that like no one has a landline phone anymore.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
My parents still have our rotary phone in the kitchen back home.
Oh wow,
we still have a rotary phone in the kitchen.
A rotary phone. Wow.
We never use it. We've changed all the other phones over the years, but the one out in the kitchen, we never use it, but it's still sitting there. It's just the old rotary phone.
It takes you like 20 minutes to dial a number.
Yeah.
Ah, shit, I fucked up. You got to start it all over again. Yeah, kids.
Doesn't
kids
Chris
don't even
Rock do
understand
like
that.
a thing on that?
I'm sure he probably does.
I think he does that in one of the Lethal Weapons, doesn't he? In Lethal Weapon 4, where Chris Rock's there, and he's just like, "Oh shit, I got to dial again." I don't even remember what it's from, but it was something like that. Maybe somebody remembers. I'm pretty sure it's Chris Rock doing a bit. Anyway, yeah. So, getting back to this film, I think so just set up, I guess, so people know it takes place in a suburb in London. You've got a young woman, Carol. She's from Belgium. And she and her older sister share an apartment. And as we said, weird stuff doesn't really start happening until about maybe 30 to 40 minutes in, but they still lay the groundwork pretty well for what her life is like and kind of a bit about her personality. Because one thing you notice right about her is, like, she's very nervous and skittish, but it's way amped up around men. Like, it's women she can at least sort of handle, and you see that she's purposely given herself that kind of insulated life because she works at a beauty salon. So all her coworkers and all her customers would always be women. So she sort of insulated herself in that sort of a female-centric world. And there is a young man who is actually trying to date her, and she's just sort of, as the title suggests, repulsed by this. And it is sort of what helps set things in motion. It's the two things combined. It's his trying to date her and her own sister leaving on a holiday and leaving her alone in the apartment, right, which really kicks things off.
This is back in the day when no didn't necessarily mean no. No could mean try a little harder, perhaps. Right. So very aggressive dudes in this movie.
Yeah, men aren't portrayed too sympathetically in this movie, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at best they're just really condescending and hot and above her, and at worst, they're lecherous and deceitful, and the examples that's being set for her is like she doesn't like either, because her sister is dating a man, and that man is actually married. And she points it out, and her sister's like, "Oh, that's not your business. There's nothing to do with you."
Yeah.
But yeah, this man has come in and really disrupted her little world with her sister. And there's little things she says like, "I don't like him putting his toothbrush in the glass," because he's staying over a lot, so he's bringing his own toothbrush to stay overnight and stuff. And she's all upset about this. And then later in the movie, when they leave, she throws all his stuff out.
Yeah, she gets really pissed off at her. Why do you think that alone upsets her so much? Just the fact that he's like establishing himself in her territory or in her area? Because
Well, I think it's established that there's obviously something in her past that has led up to all this. It's most likely maybe a family member or somebody probably molested her when she was young, right? Because the ending shot is a shot of her when she's like 13 or 14, and she has the same sort of weird, vacant, far-off look in her eyes. That's how the movie ends, a shot on that. So it's like something had already happened at this point. Plus, a couple times when she's hallucinating an imaginary man coming and molesting her, it could very well be like a representation of that person that did it. So we have a young woman that's probably had some sort of traumatic sexual event in her past that has made her extremely wary of sex or men. And she's managed to, as she's grown up, insulate herself and kind of avoid this to a certain extent. But now she just can't do it anymore. She's a beautiful young woman. Men are really coming after her and noticing her. And of course, her own sister is sexually active. And I have to say, even if you're perfectly mentally balanced, nobody really likes to hear their sibling having sex in the next room.
Oh, yeah.
And she has to put up with that a couple times. I mean, I can't stand people like that. Like the people that like don't care who hears them. I'm not, I'm the last person. I don't think like sex is some dirty, shameful act. Of course not. But I do believe in a certain amount of discretion. And I just don't like people that are like, who cares? Who the hell hears us? I don't think that's cool, man. No.
You don't want to hear some Fellini in the next room?
Oh, my God. And I mean, I've lived in apartment buildings, and I've heard things I definitely didn't want to hear over the years.
Well, it's different if it's your sibling, especially. I'd probably.
And that's the other thing. And it's one thing to hear in the next room, or the next apartment. But this is within the apartment, like you said. Like so, yeah. This is, and you're within the apartment, and your sister's there, and it's like, I don't care. We're horny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just be loud as you can possibly be.
Yeah. He's passionate.
As you do.
Yeah, and there's some little touches that sort of talk about her like nervous personality. She herself, her main job is she's a manicurist, and yet she bites her own nails. That's kind of cool. Little detail about her and her state of mind and such. So yeah, whenever she's like out in the world, then she's more or less protected. She still sort of drifts and sleepwalks through everything. She's not particularly interested in anything that she's doing. She's just sort of going through the motions and stuff. The one moment in the movie where she's most comfortable is when she's down in the room at work with one of her female coworkers, and it's right after her sister has left on the trip, and she's talking about being lonely and not having anything to do, and she says how she should get out and go to a movie or something, and she's describing to her a Charlie Chaplin film she saw, and it's like the one time she feels happy and content, and she's laughing with this other girl as she's telling her about the movie. She doesn't attempt to do that. They do show her out walking about, but she doesn't go to the movies. She's just sort of become paralyzed by her condition at a certain point. But just like how we talked about in May, they talk about the cracks. Well, this movie kind of originates that. In May, we get to see the glass case around her doll start to crack as the movie goes on, symbolizing the cracks in her own mental state, and how it would eventually shatter. Same sort of thing going on here, in that she's hallucinating cracks all over the place, cracking in the walls of her apartment and such. And also, maybe the very first really strange thing she does is when she's supposed to go meet the young man Colin, she just sees a crack in the street or the sidewalk, and she just sits down and stares at it for an hour. And then he comes and asks her what she's doing, and she has like no idea what's going on or anything. So there's sort of your first tip off that there's something really kind of wrong with her.
Yeah, I feel like the warning signs are there.
Yeah.
For mental health.
Yeah, she's definitely like losing time, as they say. I think just sort of drifting off into some other kind of state. And you know, and it eventually does snowball into her hallucinations, which are really interesting stuff. I really like the stuff with the hands coming out of the walls. It evokes a kind of sinister version of, if anybody's seen the classical 1946 version of Beauty and the Beast, the French film, which is a beautiful fantasy film. I love it. It's a wonderful film. And that has a thing in the Haunted Castle. There's a part where there are human hands that are like extending out of the walls. But in this, it's much more sinister because these are hands that are going to grab her and attack her and stuff.
Yeah, they're groping her. Like I was looking for a screenshot, and one just groping the hell out of her. That was probably Polanski's hand. Stuck his hand through there and got a piece. But,
I wouldn't be surprised. So many of those directors, they have to do that, right? They have to do the hands-on thing. Dario Argento always had to be the hands that strangled the woman. You find out that Tarantino is the one that has to like spit in what's her name's face. All these, you know, and then people wonder why they're called accused of being misogynists, you know. Because it's one thing to have a movie that has misogynistic stuff. Doesn't mean that you are into it. You're telling a story. But at the same time, when you go out of your way to do stuff like that and involve yourself personally, yeah, people are going to maybe think that. And maybe they have a point, people. You know?
Yeah.
But, that's it. I mean...
I didn't notice it when I was watching the film. Yeah, and I was noticing those hands, like one's on her ass and one's on her breast. That's probably the only like true horrific moment in the film. You know, horror related.
Sure. I mean, she does kill 2 people.
Right.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like,
I guess you're right. I mean, yeah.
Well, more afraid for her, I suppose. We're really fearing for her.
Well, I was one of those guys. I was all for her to kill because.
Sure, the landlord. You know, the landlord basically does attempt to rape her.
What are you gonna do?
He's all over her and stuff like that, and
kill his ass.
Yeah. And he does a very poor job of defending himself, because the first time she slashes him, it's in the back of the neck. So it's not, I mean, it hurt, but, you know, it's not like a debilitating or a life-threatening wound. And he just very sort of clumsily falls down and fails to protect himself as she very inexpertly, like, slashes him to death. Like, he died a long, slow, shitty death, because she didn't know what she was doing. You know, she was just cutting him here or wherever. You know, most of the cuts she was hitting him with were so superficial, but he couldn't muster any sort of defense, so he eventually just dies.
Yeah, let me ask you this: if this went like if that was real and it happened like present day, you think that she would get off for that?
I think so, because it's so easy to lie.
I mean, how
like we saw what happened. He stopped his attack and seemed to no longer be a threat.
Yeah.
As far as we know. But anybody could tell it that, like, no, he didn't stop, and he was right on top of her when she managed to grab it out, right? So I think it would be a fairly easy thing to get away with. But she's already kind of screwed because she's killed the guy that's courting her, and it would be really hard to convince people that he was going to rape her too.
Right.
Because a lot of people knew, you know, that he was probably an upstanding, okay guy, and knew that he was actually trying to be very patient in his courting of her. Now, we're not going to get all into, because it would take up the whole fucking show to talk about like where gender politics are today and MeToo and all that. But there is a very interesting conversation early in the movie where Colin is at the pub with 2 other men, and they are basically sort of talking about the problem of dealing with dating a young woman that doesn't want to put out. You know, you want to talk about locker room talk or whatever like that. And I mean, sure, that. I'll concede that's something that went on then and goes on now, where men will probably discuss something like that. But again, I don't know. It's tricky territory, right? Because it all depends upon how far you're willing to take it and what you mean. Because you can joke and talk about, well, yeah, she's not willing to put out, but what can you do to get her to do it? And then the other people that are just like, you know, well, you're justified in trying anything you want, and you know, and then he also does the thing that some people that attack the women on this point out. He says, you know, she's lording it over you, she's enjoying her power over you, that she's driving you nuts by withholding sex, right? So that's the whole bullshit thing now too about women withholding sex. This is where the incels, who I don't have a shred of compassion for, by the way, the incels. This is what they think. They think of women as some sort of like gatekeepers that have sex, that are withholding sex specifically to keep men down. Then you've got crazy people like Ann Coulter, of all people, saying, yeah, maybe if like women just fucked guys all the time, we wouldn't have rape. She's basically saying all guys are programmed to rape if we aren't getting some, which I find very insulting as a man, Ann Coulter. Just saying, that...
I don't want to argue with that. I don't want to argue with that philosophy. But
fucking ridiculous philosophy.
Let's try it out.
Yeah. But what is it? It's like sex redistribution or something, right? Like, let's set up a way so that all men, even men that are hopeless, that are like unattractive or socially awkward and would never get laid, we'll make it so that they can, and that'll keep them from going out and raping people or shooting people. Like, fuck off.
That's like an old episode or an old issue of Cosmo or something where like, give your man a blowjob and he won't go cheat on you, like
Yeah.
Give him a blowjob once a week, maybe.
I know.
That'll keep your man.
Yeah. And that's the thing. People treating sex as like a commodity. Sex is some sort of prize. Women have the prize, and they dole it out to those they think is worthy. Like this whole thing, it's... Yeah.
Does he know that she's a virgin?
I don't think he knows, but they kind of jump to that point, because that's what one of the guys says. He goes, that's the trouble with these virgins, or something like that. So I guess he doesn't maybe he doesn't know, but by the way she acts, he's pretty sure she is. I don't think there's any way for him to know for sure. And again, it's great casting of Catherine Deneuve, because she's only 21 or 22 at this point, and she looks very young. So while she's a grown woman, she still evokes all sort of the looks and sort of feelings of a younger adolescent girl. So she adds that layer to it, which probably makes the things all the more visceral and kind of heartbreaking, although I know you're not supposed to care that way, but I mean, still, you're going for something visual here, and she very much does remind you of a girl who's even younger than she is, that sort of innocence and purity, etc.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's her fault for being so damn attractive.
Yeah, there's the other...
You can't walk around in public like that. Come on.
Yeah. And she really is an extremely striking woman, the type that would turn heads wherever she goes. It's too bad, like I said, that maybe people haven't seen Catherine Deneuve in as much stuff. Actually, one of the films that was playing at the Atlantic Film Festival as one of the classics they were re-showing that I couldn't get to was her film. I think the one maybe she did right after this, Belle de Jour, which is a very interesting film, and she's great in it. It's all about sexuality, and that she's playing this housewife who's very prim and proper and everything like that, but she has like sort of internal lusts and stuff. So she willingly becomes a prostitute because she wants to explore that side of herself, and it's a really cool movie. I haven't seen it in a few years, and I would have liked to have seen it again if I could have gotten to everything I could have, but now it's in my head now again because of Catherine Deneuve. Really interesting actress. Still doing stuff, obviously much older, but
yeah, she's still busy.
Mm-hmm. As she's gotten older, she's done a few more English language films, but most of her like well-known stuff were not English language. This being kind of a bit of an exception, although again, I don't know how well-known it is. When you think of Polanski, this is maybe considered one of his early films, but it's not really talked about that much when you're talking about Polanski's works. Although I think it's just as good as a lot of them. Sure.
Back to the conversation the guys were having about her putting out.
Yeah.
It almost seems like something that now it would be like teenagers having that conversation, like maybe 16-year-old guys versus, I mean, these are grown men. I mean, in their 20s, possibly 30s. So I mean, it's really shouldn't be a problem, but I don't know. Time period, times change a lot since then. So
yeah, I suppose. Although, I mean, I guess any age group could conceivably talk about it, I guess.
Sure.
Because I mean, whether you're dating in your teens, 20s, 30s, if you're talking to a group of friends who are the same sex as you, and you're telling them about your, how this new relationship is going, often people do ask those sort of details. They want to know if you've had sex yet, or, is the sex good and stuff like that. I've never gotten into it myself, really. People are like, don't you talk about sex all the
I've never
time
wanted to.
on the air? Yeah, I guess I do, but I mean, not in any specific detail. I just,
Even my best friends, like I don't talk about stuff like that with, like.
I mean, I had best friends that they had to talk to someone. Like, I didn't really want to hear it. They just wanted to talk, and they talked it out. But yeah, I never did that. Like Ryan and myself. Like,
Oh man, I
Ryan and
crushed some
myself,
poon the other day.
we've never really exchanged notes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And now it would be really weird, because he's been married for several years. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like,
Took some broads home. I don't know. I just don't know. There's something a little too seedy about it for me.
Yeah.
This is apparently the first depiction of female orgasm to be passed by the British Board of Film Censors. Sound only.
Sound only. Yeah, it's not on screen, but yeah, you can hear the woman. But I mean, that is a big leap, and even the fact that it's acknowledging the fact that women do have orgasms.
It's a myth.
What's funny is, like, to this day, British porn is still super censored.
Oh, really?
To the point that, like, and that's actually one of the things that's not really allowed in British porn is, like, female ejaculation. Like, if you're into porn, and you're in England, you're kind of a little bit out of luck. It seems the government does check up on that, even though they're not supposed to.
Really?
Yeah. And yeah, and if you're, say, a British porn like company, like, you're specifically told there are certain acts you're not supposed to show, which is fucking ridiculous. But when I say certain acts, I mean certain sexual acts that show up in porn. I don't mean anything like insane or illegal, because obviously you're not supposed to do anything. But I mean that, like I said, like, for them, they're like, no, they're like, here's popular videos, squirting videos. Guess what? Can't do them. Yeah.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's why I live in the good old US of A.
Where anything goes. I don't know. They're not on the bottom of my porn list, but Britain is usually lame too, because they usually have just a bunch of annoying accents and talk too much. I don't like porn that's too talky anyway, but when you have a bunch of, like, guys going, "Come on, love, let's go," no, that's not
it's
working for me.
pretty funny.
Although
pretty funny.
The Germans are still the bottom for me. I don't care how hot the girl is. I don't need her going, "Oh yeah, yeah," that's not working for me. So it's very rare that I'm looking up and people all say, "Oh, what about those, English chicks with the hot posh accents?" I'm like, even if they're there's probably some Cockney jerk, like, talking to her. So it really ruins the effect for me. Trust me. Come on, love, get your knickers off.
Yeah. It's funny. It's not at all what you want out of porn, but
no, at least not me. I mean, maybe some
it's
people.
Funny stuff.
I'm just like, what? She's getting fucked by a bunch of chimney sweeps from from Mary Poppins. Jim Chimmery.
Oh, governor.
Yeah, exactly. Give it to a good gov. Like, that just no, that doesn't work. But yeah, I love the imagery of this movie. I like I like how it focuses on her eyes a lot. Eyes are the windows to the soul. I like how maybe her first little sign of sanity slippage is when she's looking into a mirror and she sees the reflection of a man who isn't actually there. Some, good foreshadowing for what's to come. I know it's a bit standard, but stuff like that really works for this kind of movie, for psychological stuff with mirrors, cracks, close up on the eyes, weird angles, different lighting. And there's even some stuff that, like, shines a light onto other kinds of mental illness too, because of, like, once she starts to isolate herself and kind of let things go. That even reminds me of, my own sort of battles with depression, like the worst days of my depression. Now, I was never living in squalor or anything, but there were times where, yeah, I let, like, dishes pile up like crazy. I didn't take out the garbage. I wasn't doing the laundry. I was letting things get really bad, and, like, she's kind of doing that. Like, the whole thing is really sold with the whole thing with a couple nights before her sister goes on the trip to Italy. She's going to make a, like, what is it, boiled rabbit stew or something. So she's got this skinned rabbit that she just leaves sitting on the counter
Oh,
and
wow,
rot.
yeah.
So yeah, you got like this skinned rabbit on the counter just rotting and attracting flies. The potatoes on the counter are starting to sprout and all this stuff. And you see that, like, she's trying to do normal things, but she can't do them. She wants to take a bath, but she overfills the tub, and then she just presumably just leaves it because it's completely full when she puts Colin's body into it. So she just left it. Right after one of the murders, she's shown like trying to iron something, but the iron's not plugged in. When she's received a couple phone calls, first from the landlord, and then eventually I figure it must be the wife of the man that's having the affair with her sister, because she's she's calling her a bitch and like she's on to her and all that. So I figure that's who that is. Like, she can't deal with that, the phone ringing, so she cuts the phone cord. She can't even pull it out of the wall, so she just like hacks at it until the cord cuts. Like, it's really great stuff, just watching like her completely unravel.
Yeah, that's probably one of the only complaints I have about the movie. On my first time I saw it years ago, it wasn't clear to me, was she actually getting raped some of those times? Because, it was like, maybe the sister's boyfriend was going in there and raping her at night. I mean, I kind of assumed it wasn't, but then she actually does get raped, or, does have, I guess, consensual sex at one point. It's just, I don't know. It's just, it's a lot going on there. And I don't
Well, I've
know if
always
you're
thought with
supposed to
the
know 100%.
well, I've always thought it's like hallucinations, but like the part where you said where it seems almost consensual for a second, I think that's kind of like representative of her, again, her being repulsed by sex for all those reasons, but also still the normal in her still kind of having some lust too and wanting it, like being like terrified of sex, but also secretly yearning for it, kind of thing. Because
Sure.
she's still human, right?
What an awful thing to be played with.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I really do.
That's why, yeah.
Because I mean, I remember a few years ago, I very briefly dated a girl who had been raped when she was young, at least according to her, and I just said like, I said, did you have like an aversion to physical intimacy for a long time afterward? And she said, well, it sort of comes and goes. Because I'm just thinking, I, I mean, I know this is years later, but still, I'd never dealt with it before. I'm just thinking, is she gonna have any difficulty or problems if we ever get intimate and stuff like that? But I don't know. She seemed remarkably in control of it, but I mean, you never know. Some people are, some people aren't, and stuff. But it was new territory for me, so I was just kind of wary. Maybe I made too big a deal out of it. Like, I didn't, I hope I didn't. I hope I didn't, because they don't want you to do that. But I was just a little bit concerned, because I just have to imagine, yeah, you would definitely have a lot of issues with getting intimate with somebody, even completely voluntarily, just because you have your memories and stuff of times when it wasn't, and how it can all get screwed up and stuff. So maybe I asked her too many probing questions. I don't know. I hope not.
Yeah,
I was just trying to do what I could so that she'd be comfortable. I hope maybe I overcompensated. I don't know, but
some of the psychology classes I've taken over the years, I think it can go both ways. Some have an aversion, and some are actually like hypersexual after the fact, or as they grow into puberty.
Yeah, I've heard that too. In fact, that seems to be the case a lot. They're like really young, and maybe like an uncle or something molests them, and then for whatever reason, and you think it would have the opposite effect, but for whatever reason, even when they're like 13, 14, they're having sex with boys, when you think it would be the last thing they would do, but instead it sort of has the opposite effect. Yeah, it can be very damaging in different ways.
It's awful.
Yeah,
but
I mean, even as an adult too, like not just like as a kid, like even as a a complete adult, it can be very, obviously, very serious issue.
Yeah, I feel like an adult maybe has the coping skills that a child may not have, and I mean,
sure,
it's got to scar you for life. I mean, you're like broken always, in some way or another. It's terrible. Yeah. But yeah, either way is just awful. Yeah, we don't condone that here on the movie discussion pocket dimension.
But the movie does take sort of an interesting look. I mean, it's maybe an exaggerated one, but like, yeah, of the after effects of some sort of a sexual abuse episode, for sure. Again, it's never stated outright, but it's pretty heavily implied in the movie. You know, that's why she is the way she is and stuff. And again, it's sort of extreme. She kind of loses her mind, kills people and stuff. But again, it's a movie, and that's the point. Psychological thriller, and it's I don't know. Catherine Deneuve really sells it too. She's got those wide, innocent eyes and stuff, and blank expression at certain points. And I really enjoy the scenes where like people are just trying to communicate with her normally, and like how she's just like still kind of not there. And it's an interesting scene when the landlord comes in, the way his demeanor changes too, because I think that's how it goes with a lot of sort of sexual assaults. He comes in, he's all business, and he's mad about the rent situation. Very quickly finds out that the sister isn't there. This is the younger sister, and she doesn't seem to know anything. So now he's not really mad anymore. Now he's interested because she's young and attractive and stuff. And he very quickly formulates this plan. He's just like, "Oh, you don't have to bother about the rent if you can let me get something and stuff." And even though like this is in no way inviting it, because of course not. But the fact is, at least a normal person would actually like say something back to him. She just continues to like not say anything, right?
Right.
She's just sort of like dazed, like looking at him. And I'm not saying, oh, that means yes, but to him, an attacker like that, he thinks, oh, okay, she's cool with this. Here I come. You know, it makes it worse. And then, I mean, she does eventually fight him off, but again, there's sort of like a delayed reaction to it. At first, she's just sort of laying there, letting him do it before it sort of kicks in. Even though this is her worst fear realized. This is the thing she's already been hallucinating and worrying about.
Right,
now it's actually happening. But there's actually a delayed response. At first, she doesn't really do anything. Maybe she's just so in shock, whatever, or she doesn't seem to even realize it's happening. Then, you know, it kicks in, and then she fights him off. And luckily for her, like I said, he's kind of easy to fight off. And then he composes himself, and then he's very easy to kill. But
what a terrible landlord, right? First he comes in. This is like day 2 of the rent being due.
Yeah.
And he comes in and just, makes his way in, does what he, looks throughout their place, scopes everything out, calling the sister names the whole time.
Yeah.
And, talking about being a pigsty and them destroying property. And then she gives him the rent. It's like, get the fuck out. Here's the rent. Get out. But it doesn't stop there.
He does have some reasons to be concerned. For instance, she did try to half-assedly bar the door, remember? When he gets in, this is at the point where after she'd killed Colin, in her panic mode when she can't do anything right, she thinks, close off the apartment. So she takes like a board and using the candlestick that she'd already used to murder Colin, just sort of half-heartedly nails it into the wall, but it's down here at like the shin level of the door. She leaves it there. So when he first arrives, when he does have the right to go in with the key, and he tries to, he finds this board across. So he does have some reasons to be a bit concerned, because what the hell's a board doing across this door? And then, yeah, as he finds the state of the apartment is kind of alarming, although luckily he hasn't found any bodies. But Colin's body is in the bathtub at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's still
a
terrible asshole and stuff. Yeah, but he's still a terrible asshole, and obviously he is trying to sexually assault her. No bones about that.
Hey, get you a few months of free rent.
Yeah.
If only gender roles were reversed.
Yeah, it would be difficult to pull off in a movie like this, wouldn't it?
Hey, I can't pay the rent this month, so or actually for the rest of the year. So,
yeah. What's funny is like this movie with its sort of risque content, and I guess also the fact that at the time Polanski was hardly a big name or anything like that. Both Paramount Pictures and British Lion Films were approached to produce it and put up the money for it, and they wouldn't. And who wound up actually financially backing the film was a company called Compton Pictures, whose main distribution at the time was softcore porn.
I figured you were going to say that.
Yeah, so that's actually who wound up producing the movie and putting up the money for it.
Yeah, I wonder how it did when it was originally released. If it did very well.
No, no, I only see stuff about the critical response, which was good, but I don't know how it actually did, like, yeah, commercially.
It seems like something that may not the mainstream audience may not
Well, I mean, it
may not
certainly was a
appreciate.
success based on its budget, because its budget was under £100,000, and it made over $3 million. So
Oh, really? Okay.
from that standpoint, it was a success. Although again, that's mainly because it was a very low budget movie. Sparse locations. Deneuve certainly wasn't a big name at the time. Um, and that's another thing for a psychological horror movie that relies on some effects. The effects are fairly simple. The cracks in the walls. It's not like crazy mind melting psychedelia stuff that would require really heavy duty special effects. And that's another thing I kind of praise the movie for, because a lot of movies, I think, if they're made nowadays, go really heavy in that direction. I'm not even saying that's wrong, because that can help, if you can get them, I don't know, seeing all sorts of weird, twisty shapes and colors and stuff. This movie doesn't have that, and still does a pretty good job of conveying, her state of mind as it's unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
But it does it with fairly simple effects, some cracking walls, some, spinning camera angles, some close-ups. Nothing too out there, really.
Yeah, yeah, it works. You know, it's always better to less is more. If you don't have the budget to do hardcore gore effects, which a film like this I don't even think would warrant it really, because
No,
what
not really.
what they've done is perfect.
Yeah. And again, as it relates to movies of that era heading into what New Hollywood would adopt, it's fairly minimalistic in its approach, and shows that a lot of the big budget, um, you know, cast of thousand movies that were on vogue in the 50s and early 60s, they were overly bloated and complicated, and you could
Mm-hmm.
take movies back to a simpler place and still tell a really effective story. And that's clearly what Polanski's doing in all three of those films, the apartment trilogy, because again, they have fairly limited location, mostly in an apartment, and with fairly small cast of characters too. This movie is practically a one woman show, not completely, but
Right.
it very much revolves around its protagonist, and heavily relies on the performance of Deneuve, who I think sells it beautifully. Um, I'm not saying it's outstanding acting, it's good acting, but also it's good acting combined with her just having the right, again, physical qualities and stuff, that sort of wide eyed innocence, being so beautiful and young and fragile. It all works so well for the story being told. And her sister's kind of a good contrast. Her sister's older, more experienced, not as pretty or delicate, and much more in control of her life and her sexual desires, as we see. It's kind of her sister that inadvertently helps set this chain of events off by having her sexual activity being right around her sister. So it shows that whatever had happened to Carol in her past, her sister's completely oblivious to. You know, never knew anything about it. But we already have a somewhat shy, introverted person. Most people just thought, okay, that's her way. But now, because of these circumstances, it's being pushed past her limit and into her state of madness, to the point where we don't even really know what happens at the end. I guess she's probably entered some sort of catatonic state. I guess at the end is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, she's not dead, right? So
No, I think she's catatonic. I think
just
her mind just
brains
sort of,
fried. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Just
and again, that isn't impossible. Um, Considering what she's been through and the acts that she's done, that can happen. I mean, it's a rare thing, but it can happen. Just like even a sexual assault on its own can sometimes render somebody hysterical in a different way, like how the famous Tennessee Williams play, Streetcar Named Desire ends. Like after Blanche is finally raped by Stanley, like she just goes over the edge and she has to basically be confined to the nut house because she's like completely lost it.
like a psychotic break or
Yeah,
what you call that.
yeah. I guess probably a kind of psychotic break. So I assume like she's catatonic at this point, and
Well, they hadn't found the bodies either at that point, so
well, they found
maybe.
one. I think they found at least one at that
Oh,
point.
did they? Okay.
Yeah, that's why they called in. Because what happens is her sister first goes in and finds a body, and she can't even explain. It's funny. The boyfriend slaps her to get her. He's like, "Come on, tell me,"
Oh, okay.
because she's hysterical, and he slaps her to get it. And all she does is point, and he goes in. So they find at least one of the bodies, and then it's funny too because it's a movie that doesn't have much. Too many characters. Suddenly, all these people that have been absent in the building, they all show up, right? Just like people do, and whenever there's trouble. I like the old guy that keeps saying something like "Give us some brandy" or
I
something like
know.
that.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
I look for it,
First,
but
it's
sorry,
some
guys.
brandy, and then I'll get her some brandy.
Yeah, he says it at least twice, maybe three times. It's
Yeah.
funny. And everyone's like, "Don't move her." I don't know, and everybody's just standing around gawking, which is, again, very true to life.
So Colin was in the bathtub, right? So this is
Colin was in the
probably
bathtub, and she even less inexpertly hid the landlord by just sort of tipping the couch over on him.
okay.
The couch is all tipped over, and you can see his feet sticking out from underneath. So I can't remember which one her sister saw first, but she saw one of the bodies.
Okay. See, I thought the sister saw her and was just so blown away by her state. Okay. So she, I guess, saw the feet sticking out of the couch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, they find Carol later. She's under the bed, actually. So they actually have to look for her. She's under the bed at that point.
okay.
So at some point after the second murder, she's just gone over the edge and gone into her catatonic state or whatever.
The old adage. If you're ever watching something that's like from the 50s or before, you'll see them slapping women that are hysterical quite a bit.
Yeah, snap out of it.
Ah!
And sometimes the women will even be grateful for it. They're like, "Thanks, I needed that." Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's this great point. Oh man, there's a great. Did you ever get around to seeing? I think it's on YouTube too. Garth Marenghi's Darkplace.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so you should definitely watch Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. There's only 6 episodes. What it is a couple British guys, and one of them plays a fictional horror author that's obviously a riff on Stephen King, who's written all these trashy horror books in the 80s. And the point is, like, it's in the early 2000s when the show came out, and he addresses the audience as if he's that, and he talks about how, like, he made a show back in the mid 80s that never got released to network television because it was too real and too awesome. But now because they're in like the worst like drought of creative stuff in the world, they want to release the show. So it's basically a re-release of this show that never got aired. The stars him, and it's called Garth Marenghi's Darkplace,
Wow.
where he's the author of these books, and he plays the lead, Dr. Rick Douglas or something, at this hospital. And it's kind of a riff again on like Stephen King, because it's like this hospital that's full of paranormal activity and stuff. And the whole point is it's cheesy as shit, it's awful, the acting is terrible, the effects are garbage. What's even funnier is his publisher, this guy Dean Werner. He's that black guy with a really strong accent. He's in what was
Like
he
the
in?
IT crowd.
Yeah, he's in the IT crowd, and he was the alien guy in that The Watch and stuff like that. So yeah, he's his publisher, but he said his publisher never acted before, but he plays like the superintendent of the hospital or something, and his acting is like so bad it's on another level. Like sometimes like he doesn't even know how to like talk on the phone or pick up objects. But anyway, there's a point where there's this woman who they say died, so she's not in because they have scenes where the actors and he will talk about it. It's almost like watching a DVD commentary, but she's not in it because they say she died. But anyway, there's a great point where like she's screaming and somebody slaps her and she goes, "Thanks, I was hysterical." But yeah, I think you can watch it on YouTube. It's hilarious. You should definitely watch it.
That's right up my alley. I love all those actors. Yeah.
It's super, super funny. Garth Marenghi, you're about to enter my dark place.
Oh God.
It's really funny. And it always opens with like him in like some study, like reading one of his books and stuff like that. And his books are just fucking awful.
From the best-selling Master of Darkness.
Yeah. It's hilarious. There's
Oh,
this part where he just keeps saying blood. He's like, blood, 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 more blood. And then there's like a sex scene. He reads this sex scene and then he goes, and then they were eaten by a hell beast or something like that. It's awesome stuff.
a big fan of that. Matt Berry.
Yeah.
Matt
There's a great part too.
Berry, like Snuff Box.
They're talking about the actress and how she's dead now, and at one point, the black guy goes, "She was like a candle in the wind, unreliable." Yeah, only 6 episodes, but so many awesome quotes and stuff.
That's the thing about British TV, man. They knew how to quit while they were ahead. You know.
Yeah.
Or they still do. You know, they do like maybe what you may get 3 series if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah, that's usually the big ones. I mean, what's weird is the exceptions. It's either a show barely runs or it runs forever. Is how it works.
Like Doctor Who, is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, there's like no middle ground. Or one of my favorites, one of my favorites of those comedies is Are You Being Served, which ran from like the early '70s to the late '80s. I used to watch that when I was a kid late at night with my mom on PBS. That still like comes on. And so that ran for like, I don't know, like 14, 15 years, a really long time.
Wow.
Exponentially long by British standards. But yeah, you know, it's one of those typical British comedies, comedy of manners and thing. It's just about a bunch of people that work at a high end sort of clothing store.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's good. I like it. It's funny. It's just has one of the earlier examples of a camp gay character on the show. I can't remember his name. He's really funny, and people, you know, would later complain about being too camp. He's like, well, what do you want? It was the era, you know.
Yeah, I definitely recognize the people. Yeah. Oh, the pink-haired lady, yeah.
Well, she always had different colors. Sometimes it was blue or green. Yeah, she's on there. It was interesting because it sort of shows the class divide between the workers and stuff like that. It was a fun show. I've never seen it in any sort of sequence. I've just seen a bunch of episodes over the years out of order and stuff. As I said, I used to watch it when I was when I was quite young with my mom, but it still comes on now and again. But yeah, that's a British show that just ran for fucking forever. Kind of amazing. Because usually they're very short.
Mm-hmm. Like oh jeez, what was the one that Simon Pegg was on with Nick Frost? Spaced.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That did 2, right? 2 series.
If that, I've never seen it, but yeah.
But I mean, really short runs, like 8 episodes at the most.
Mm-hmm. One that got revived that I always wanted to watch back in the day was the Red Dwarf show, the comedy sci-fi show. Mm-hmm. That's supposed to be really funny. From like the late '80s, I think, something like that. They did a couple of revivals of it. But yeah, Doctor Who. Yeah, so I used to watch like I think '70s era Doctor Who. It used to come on YTV after certain shows, and I used to watch that as a kid too, and have no idea what anything was, what was going on. I had no idea, but it came on like around the same time as other shows that I watched, so I would watch it. But yeah, it was always that specific era. I guess that's what YTV had the rights to at the time.
Yeah.
I don't even know. They would have been on like their 4th or 5th Doctor by that point.
Yeah, we always watched reruns of stuff. It's like different things are so different now. Kids have so many options. They don't have to watch.
Yeah.
They don't have to watch anything. They don't have to watch commercials. YTV
had such weird programming back then. Because you know what else they showed reruns of on YTV? They were super old. One was Rocky and Bullwinkle, which kind of makes sense. But they also showed Get Smart. I used to watch Get Smart as a kid.
Yeah.
Which just seems weird now. Like, the idea of them playing Get Smart on present-day YTV would make no sense at all. But, like, back when I was a kid, yeah, sure, here's Get Smart. We got
you wouldn't think, like, kids would be into that, right? Like, kids wouldn't want to see that now.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't. But, I liked it.
Yeah.
He had a shoe phone, man. What kids don't like shoe phones? And Agent 99, man, I loved her. Stuff. She was hot. She was probably one of my earlier TV crushes, was Agent 99. I don't know if I realized how old the show was when I watched it. I can't remember if I knew it was from the 60s or what, but, I definitely thought she was very pretty.
Yep, Get Smart, oh man, all that stuff. Dragnet, Car 54.
Yeah, I saw a bit of the old. I saw a bit of the old Dragnet. the names have been changed to protect the innocent. That's like the original crime drama, Dragnet.
Mm-hmm.
Now we live in a world awash with crime dramas.
Oh man, I was just looking the other day, just out of the curiosity. It's so much that I'm not even that I have no idea about. It's so much out there. If you wanted to only watch crime dramas, you would be okay, like for the rest of your life. It's plenty out there.
Yeah, and I mean it's fall now, so a bunch of new ones have probably just started.
CSI Atlantic City.
The new Lethal Weapon with Sean William Scott is on tonight, like possibly right now. If anyone wants to see Sean William Scott, I don't know if they replaced the character and just have the actor playing him, or if they just brought him in to be a different character. I have no idea.
I think that would be hilarious if they just totally replaced the whole character. Like, just take the actor out and insert Sean William Scott, and I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, maybe that's what they did. I don't know.
He really hasn't done anything in a long time.
No, this is probably a huge lifesaver for him. Get his face out there again.
Goon 2, maybe is the last thing I can think of he did.
Yeah.
I guess he was in Goon 2. I haven't seen it, but
yeah, he's the main guy again.
I like the first Goon.
Yeah. The second's not as good, but it's all right. And it actually does take a kind of serious tone in some places, which is interesting because it shows, I guess, some responsibility on the part of Jay Baruchel. It's like you can't really make a movie about like fighting in hockey without at least showing some of like the bad side of it. Because a lot of it's not good for a lot of guys. I mean, now enforcers don't really even exist now, but I mean, back when they did, like in the last like 10 years, like a whole bunch of former enforcers have like died or committed suicide, like some really rough stuff.
Really? Wow.
It really takes a toll. Guys that are fighting every other night. It's one of the hardest jobs you could do. Going out there knowing your job was just, you're barely out there to even play hockey. You're just out there to drop the gloves with the other team's tough guy. But the game has changed, at least in the NHL level. Fighting still happens, but it's not the same. I mean, in some ways, I guess it's good. You know, I don't want to say, oh, bring everything back where people got brain damage. But I mean, still, you can't. Some of it, you know, was damn entertaining when there'd be big fights and stuff like that, obviously. So I don't know. But new NHL season starts tomorrow night. Yay. For the first time in like 15 years, I'm excited about the Leafs. It's been so long. After so many years of doom and gloom. So that'll be awesome.
You've been pleased with the preseason?
Yeah. I mean, you can never read too much into preseason. But, I mean, I have every reason to think that, you know, this team is going to be everybody as good as last year, if not better. We signed, you know, a huge superstar. We added a superstar player to the team that already existed that did so well last year and stuff. So yeah, people say, oh, the Leafs still don't have defense. Well, we'll see about that. I mean, it's never going to be their great strength, but it's going to be a high octane offensive team that's going to score a lot of goals. It'll be fun to watch. But yeah, preseason. I mean, they've won most of their games. The 2 games they lost in preseason were basically using the AHL lineup. They weren't using like the, you know, any of the regulars and stuff.
Yeah, I know Joseph Purdue was asking who's ready for the new season. So,
yep. No, many years I'd be like, yeah, I guess so, because I know it was just gonna be a lot of pain and stuff. Yeah. But this year actually has expectations and everything. Yeah, it's been super long for me as a Leafs fan. Not that there haven't been good seasons, like from other perspectives, but still, I live and die with the Leafs, so you know. Oh yeah, lots of cool things to look forward to this season, even outside of the Leafs. Although, I mean, last year is a hard model to follow just because of what Las Vegas did. I mean, the greatest expansion team of all time in like any sport, Las Vegas, going all the way to the Stanley Cup final in their first ever year. That's crazy.
Wow.
I mean, it shows also how talented is true. Like, because when the league the first time the league expanded was in the late '60s, it doubled. It went from 6 teams to 12, and like in the late '60s, early '70s, there were some god awful, terrible teams that like if you looked at like what the expansion draft was, like the players they had to draw from, it was like just a bunch of minor leaguers. Like one advantage Las Vegas had was they had legitimately good players to pick from. Still cast-offs, teams, you know, players that other teams deemed expendable, but still, so much better. Even if you go back into the early '90s and the expansion there, like the drafts, the expansion drafts were, very slim pickings, but now it's a lot better. So if they make a Seattle team in the next few years, I'm not saying he can do what Vegas does, but it should still be a lot better than the expansion teams of old. Because again, it will actually have some real talent to draw from. It won't just get a whole bunch of rejects and career minor leaguers and stuff. I mean, I don't really want 32 teams, but I mean, we already have 31, so I guess 32 would at least make it symmetrical.
Yeah.
I wanted them to stop at 24, but you don't have time for me to blab about the way I think the NHL should be.
Well, I mean, if anything, it means the sport's growing, right?
Yes, and that's true. And I mean, part of me is very happy to see the sport grow, and then part of me is also, a completely snobbish Canadian that presents hockey in certain markets that I don't think it belongs in. But I mean, like, I can't stand that there's hockey in Nashville, but maybe I should be happy. I mean, they're successful. They have a huge fan base. I should let it go. It's great that Nashville likes hockey, I should say.
I told you, man, we had a team here for a little while. It was, obviously not,
Yeah.
I don't know, a lower grade of teams.
Probably an
Smaller,
ECHL team.
whatever. But, yeah, of all places, the Jackson Bandits.
Yeah, I think that's ECHL.
Okay.
So that's the lowest professional league in North America.
Okay.
I think. I think as full professional, then there's weird, semi-pro leagues. I don't really know how those work, but I think at professional level. So conceivably, if you played in the ACHL, you could make it to the NHL. It does happen sometimes. It's rare, but it does happen. There's the odd player that slogged it out for a season or two in the ECHL and worked his way all the way up.
How many levels are there in between the two?
It's technically only like two, really. You'd be like ECHL, AHL, NHL, really. But
okay.
But still, anything, if you're in anything below the AHL, it's a pretty hard grind. North America speaking, obviously it's all flipped over in Europe. They have so many different leagues. It's too hard to keep track of exactly what the level is. Most people would say the AHL is the best hockey league in the world. After the NHL, I'd say it's kind of in a tie with that Russian league, the KHL. Then after that, it's almost impossible because players are just spread out all over the place, right? You have players that were good enough for the NHL, now they're in some European minor league, it's more difficult. It's funny, just before the NHL season started, and in fact tomorrow before it officially starts, Edmonton's going to play, I think, a German team, and just yesterday, as part of this thing called the Global Series, again to grow the game, there were two of them. Edmonton's playing some German team, and yesterday the New Jersey Devils played a Swiss team. And they did win, but they won in overtime. They won 3-2 in overtime. And a lot of people were saying, oh, like, the Devils were pushed to the brink by a Swiss team. Like, they won't be any good this year. Like, I'm like, people don't realize, yeah, I get it. Like, the Swiss league is far below the NHL, but that doesn't mean it's that big. Don't tell me they couldn't have beaten the Devils. They could have. I watched the entire game. It was a good, competitive game. And it's true. Like, one of their leading scorers is an NHL cast-off who could never even become like a regular in the NHL. The big difference you would notice between the Swiss team and NHL team is size. So much smaller. They probably only had three players that would have been over 6 feet and 200 pounds, and their goalie was 5'10", which would make him by far the smallest goalie in the NHL. So size is something that is really difficult. Only the very best small guy. Although things have changed now for the better. Like, if it was the 90s and you're small, there was no chance. But because of the way the game has changed and stuff, small players can play in the NHL now and make a real difference.
So,
but size is always going to be an asset, though. If you're 6'4", 220, that's always going to be a good thing. Compared to being like 5'8", 180.
So if you're really good, like in the Swiss league, like you're looking, right? That's where the money is. Is that how it works?
The NHL is definitely where the money is, with a few exceptions, like the KHL will throw out huge contracts to certain superstar players just to keep them from going to the NHL and to get tax less. But I mean, yeah, obviously the NHL is where the salary is. What's funny is I always tell people, I never had that drive, and it doesn't matter because I wouldn't. But if I was a professional hockey player, the Swiss league is my favorite league. That's where I'd play. Because I would still make good money. It would be completely tax-free. I'd live in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Instead of an 82-game season, my season would be half that. It'd be only like 41, 42 games. My longest road trip would just be a 2-hour bus ride. And they have crazy awesome fans. Like, honestly, I think if I was an NHLer, I might only play there a couple of years, make a few million, than just play in the Swiss league. That's what I do.
Wow.
That's my favorite league. I love the Swiss league, and their fans are crazy. And that was the thing. The fans were super happy to see the Devils, who have 2 Swiss-born players. It was a really nice thing. Like when it was over, both teams saluted the fans. They shook hands. Like, yeah, people love their hockey over there. Swiss league's a good league. No, it's not on par with the NHL, but people thinking that an NHL team would just stomp any Swiss team any day of the week are wrong. There's good players over there, you know? Anyway. Yeah, I don't like those. And sometimes like Orc is the same way about stuff. Like he always thinks like the best level and then everything below it is crap. It's not that simple, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, I don't know if you remember VA for the USA team in the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, they lost a few years ago.
Yeah.
A few Olympics ago. And everybody was all, pissed off. We need to get the good players in there again. Because what it was like, the best players, they didn't want to go risk getting injured. So they didn't even want to do it. But,
last year's Olympics didn't have the NHL players, and Canada couldn't even medal. Russia won because they had a team full of KHLers. But
so how does that work? Like they just don't allow them to go participate?
Yeah, the NHL has to like sign some sort of deal or something to allow them to go. So yeah, they weren't allowed to go.
That sucks.
You hear Gary Bettman saying, that the Olympics doesn't benefit the NHL. Like, it doesn't actually help. I think you're wrong, Gary Bettman. But again, we can't blab about Gary Bettman and what I think he's done to the league over the years.
Well,
but anyway.
That win means nothing then,
I know. The Russians didn't beat the best in the world. They beat a bunch of B and C squads.
Yeah.
Olympics should be best on best. I mean, honestly. But like I said, it's the same thing with other things like fighting. Like there's people out there that are like the UFC is the be end all. It is the best league, but don't think for a second there aren't fighters in other leagues that are good enough to be in the UFC or could beat them. There are.
That's a non-team sport. That's all cards are off the table with that stuff. You can know a guy from some country you never heard of before come out and be the best fighter in the world,
Yeah. So, I mean, as I've gotten into fighting the last few years, I watch a lot more than UFC. I watch Bellator when I can. I watch kickboxing events. I'd like to watch the Risen stuff, but it's hard to watch. Although, I do realize Risen is a bit below, but it's more of... Risen's kind of just like bringing back the old Pride days. Basically, if you lose a bunch in the UFC, you can still go over to Risen and make a ton of money. That's what that Mirko Krokop's been doing. Mirko Krokop's like 44 years old, but he's like on an 8-fight winning streak because he keeps fighting nobodies over in Japan and destroying them. So it's a good way to sustain your career too. But I mean, still, there are still good fighters in other places too. So
there used to be a lot more leagues too. The UFC basically just absorbed
everything.
They
absorbed Strikeforce. They absorbed WEC.
Yeah,
I really
love both of those.
I wish I was watching back in those days because that seems like the best days of the sport was like early 2000s. Pride was still around, Strikeforce, UFC, and a lot of those fighters that are like retired or if they're not retired, kind of a joke now. Like just the other night, Rampage Jackson and Wanderlei Silva fought for like the 3rd time the other night.
Who won?
I don't know, the 4th time. Rampage.
Oh man.
So Wanderlei won the first 2. And Rampage won the last 2. So now they're tied. But I mean, Wanderlei won when they were actually young. Like, their last one was in 2008. And even 2008, they were kind of old. Now it's 10 years later. But I mean, so Bellator still puts on fights like that. But at the same time, they've got, they got Rory McDonald, who got killed, which is too bad. I really wanted to see him win. But you're not a middleweight, Rory. Rory tried to take the middleweight championship from Gegard Mousasi, who again was one of the best fighters in UFC when he left. So again, it's not like he couldn't hack it in the UFC. He liked the Bellator deal more.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of great fighters in Bellator.
Yeah,
a lot of
so it's
old guys,
starting to even out a lot more. Yeah, no, like there's a lot of like actual in their prime fighters or even up and comers and stuff. That Aaron Pico guy, he's amazing, man. He's a 145 pounder. He's only like 23 or something like that. He hits like a truck. Like all his knockouts, like 2 of them are like body shots. Like he just punched a guy in the stomach and he just collapsed. He did that twice in a row. Like he looks like he could kill Conor McDavid, but not Conor McDavid. Conor McGregor. Of course, that's the next big fight. McGregor is going to fight the Russian in a couple days.
Yeah. Tired McGregor.
I know. He's been gone for 2 years, and we're still tired of him. Because he's still had the boxing fight. I think he's going to get killed, but who knows?
He made his money, so.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is, I just feel like in a lot of sports and even other things, like people, I mean, there's nothing wrong with like liking the best. You should, but I don't know. I'm interested enough that I like other stuff too. But work always had the attitude like I don't waste my time on anything but the best. And I'm just like, okay, that's your choice. But I do feel like sometimes you might be missing out.
Yeah. I think mainly he's talking about the NFL.
I get that to a certain extent. Football's not a global sport. You know, there's a much smaller talent pool in football. It's not like, oh, over in this country they do football just as well. No, they really don't. You know, so there is a bigger drop off between the NFL and other leagues for sure. But that's just because that's the nature of that particular sport.
It's gaining popularity over in Europe, believe it or not.
That's cool, I guess.
I don't really know why, but
yeah, you know, sometimes things just hit at a certain time. It's interesting.
I was actually looking at the day he actually played over in somewhere crazy. You know, I played football in another country.
You'll catch on.
German Football League.
Oh,
Munich Cowboys.
The German leagues have the best names. I don't know if they're still around, but there was a fucking hockey team in the German league called the Landshut Cannibals.
Wow, I like that.
But I mean, it just shows how screwed up people are. Like, I can't think of anything worse than cannibalism. I think, but you would never have a team called the Landshut Rapists, right?
Pedophiles.
Yeah, if you had like the Landshut Rapists or pedophiles, like people would like flip their lid, but they're okay with cannibals, even though I think that's even worse. Like, isn't cannibalism even worse? Killing people and eating them? I think that's worse. But maybe because it seems so ridiculous and, you know, out there that people can handle it. It doesn't seem real world. I guess so. I guess I'm thinking about it a lot because I'm back in my Thomas Harris phase. After we watched, we did the thing with Orc where we watched Silence of the Lambs. I immediately wanted to go back to the Hannibal show, which I was positive did not have the third season on my Netflix. I'm positive it just showed up the other day exactly when I needed it, which would be really weird for Netflix. So I can finally watch the third season of Hannibal. But yeah, we'll watch Red Dragon the next little while too, and might even reread some of the books, so I'm totally in that mood. So I guess I'm thinking a lot about cannibalism because I keep seeing Hannibal murdering people and then cooking them up. And to me, that's always going to be one of the most vile and awful crimes ever. But I guess people just think of it as so like ridiculous and like not a common thing that yeah, it's acceptable to name a sports team the Cannibals. Whereas yeah, if you said the Landshut Rapists, like people be like, what? They're like, I'm not putting on
yeah, come in here, we're gonna rape you.
I couldn't imagine putting on a jersey that says I'm a cannibal, but they're okay with it apparently over in Germany with their dark sense of humor.
Not really. We're not really gonna eat your flesh. We might. Watch out. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, so now it's October, so we're trying to get into the horror mode. I mean, we're the type of guys that are kind of in horror mode all year anyway, but amp it up this year.
Yeah.
As you said, you're watching some new stuff. I guess I'll have to because although it just takes up enough of my time to rewatch the old stuff because there's so many things that I consider necessary to watch before Halloween. But I'll talk about the absolute must that I watch on the 30th and the 31st. The 30th and 31st, I always have to watch The Crow for Devil's Night, Halloween 1 and 2 back to back. Now the film Trick or Treat because I love that film because it's Halloween on crack. Quite a few specials actually. So I love that the Peanuts Halloween special to me is a masterpiece. I think it's all like, and I love the Garfield Halloween Adventure.
Yep.
Disney's Halloween Treat, which I used to watch every year on TV back when I had Family Channel, which they don't show on current day Disney Channel because they don't care about anything anymore. They don't give a fuck.
No. I show like I don't know, some
Halloween
teen
Town,
drama or some shit.
The Return of Halloween Town. There's a bunch of Disney Channel movies called Halloween Town that I've never watched that I'm sure are garbage.
They're not good.
So those are like, oh man, you've seen.
I've seen most of them. I think I've seen like 4 of them.
Yeah. I didn't think I was telling you something you didn't know, but for me, they're just a name I've seen on the guide. I've never watched a second of them. So those are like the absolute musts for me for Halloween. On Devil's Night and Halloween to fit those in.
I always make the mistake of like getting a big list, a big stack of movies I want to watch, and I just get too busy or whatever, and I don't get around to it. So it's more like stressful than anything to me. So I'm just trying to take it easy this year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to watch as much as possible, but I don't really have a set list or anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch I own that should be easy to just fit in. Like, they aren't must-haves, but it should be easy enough. Like the Scream trilogy, I've got that, so I'll watch it. I've got Sleepaway Camp. I'll probably watch Day of the Dead because I own that. Return of the Living Dead.
That's a good one.
It's a lot of fun.
I always try to watch, like you said, Trick or Treat's one that has become kind of a classic.
Oh, I love it so much. Where's a sequel, man?
Halloween, definitely. Yeah, I know they need to do a sequel, but I guess it's probably been too long now.
Yeah.
I always watch Night of the Demons, usually. That's a big one.
I keep meaning to watch those. Both of those are on Shudder now, and I should watch them.
Oh, are they? Cool.
Or they're on my Shudder anyway, and I know that you like them, so I should watch them. Because I've never, ever seen them.
Yeah, I mean, they're, comedy, horror comedies.
Yeah, I get it. But they're fun.
Yeah, I saw them when I was a kid, and they kind of hold a special place, especially because they're set on Halloween night. So, it's all good.
Funny, I was having kind of a sad diatribe about how Halloween's changed because my girlfriend's Thai, and she doesn't know much about Halloween. They don't do trick or treating and stuff like that. So I was telling her about the stuff I grew up with, and I'm like, but it's really not like that here now, because it sucks. Because I used to trick or treat from a little after probably 6. I never went out till it was dark. No matter how young I was, I never went out till it was dark. I was never out in the broad daylight, and I trick or treated till well past 9. And nowadays, here in Nova Scotia, the official time is between 5 and 7. So for like the first hour, it's still light, and then like by 7, it's already over for kids, which is fucking ridiculous.
Oh yeah, we did like at least 9 also.
Yeah, and my neighborhood was just so good for it. Ryan Ho and I live on like this no exit street that was like known for like giving out badass stuff. So kids used to get dropped off in carloads at the top of our street just to come. Like they'd be from far away neighborhoods. They'd come for our street. Like my parents would get well over 200 kids every year. Wow. Now they don't even get close to half that. Like the doorbell would just ring 3.5 hours. And it was great. Like I would go trick-or-treating, and my street always had a Halloween party too, just a little after 9. And we'd have fireworks and stuff, and so we did have like reason to come back too and not stay out too late. But still, that was by 9,
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a little bit of hope for it because I don't know. This is probably maybe 10 years ago or so. It's like the religious aspect we're trying to take over. Around here, the Bible Belt, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Halloween was bad or something. So basically, like. Nobody trick-or-treated, really. And it was all, you would go to the church, and they would do like a little fall festival carnival, not called Halloween.
Oh, my God. I've seen like TV shows that made fun of this. This is hilarious.
Yeah, no, but that was legit, and I don't know what caused it, but anyway, that's pretty much gone now, and a lot of people are like really gung-ho about it, and a lot of people go all out and do haunted houses, and kids trick-or-treat all the time.
Nice to see it make a bit of a comeback.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of a little bit, but when I was a kid. But it's nice that it's back the way it should be.
For the rest of the year, I'm always really happy about not being around kids or near kids. But it's the one time of year where I feel kind of too bad that I'm insulated, and that nobody trick or treats in my building, obviously. And even when I lived in the neighborhoods around, we barely ever got trick or treaters. I remember once Shane and I were all set to watch horror movies, and like he came out in costume to greet trick or treaters. We got barely any and stuff, and it was kind of disappointing, really, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm glad there's not trick or treating in my building. I guess it kind of would be a hassle and kind of lame for the kids anyway to trick or treat in an apartment building. But it's the one time where like I can't even look out my window and see any kids like walking around, which is too bad. I do kind of wish it's the one time of year where I kind of wish kids were around. It's funny because I'm right on the stupid playground, so every day I hear the kids and they annoy me and I hate them. But they aren't there for Halloween, of course, right? So it's like the one time I wouldn't mind having them around, but I don't get to see or hear from them. So it almost feels like Halloween doesn't even happen when I'm, here in my apartment alone, like with not much going on, just watching a movie by myself. It's been about 3 or 4 Halloween since I had anybody over. One of my girlfriends, I guess maybe 2014 might have been the last time I actually had somebody here. The girl I was dating was actually over, but most of the time the timing just doesn't line up, and I'm by myself and there's not much going on. I just sort of watch horror movies and
It's my daughter was telling me something the other day. She wanted to get some decoration. I was like, that's cool. We could do that. Like, it was this, it's like a program you can download for a projector screen, and it makes it look like there's zombies or ghosts or whatever walking around. It's really cool, but I was like, when would we do it? We're always gone on Halloween night. There's no one at our house giving candy because we're out trick-or-treating. But,
you still get to do that.
That'll be when it gets fun again for me, when I get to stay at home and scare the crap out of the other kids.
I give credit to my parents because 1, they're not like horror centric like me at all, and 2, they've been empty nesters forever. They're well into their 60s, but they still put a lot of energy into Halloween. They get good treats for the kids, and they put up decorations and stuff like.
Oh man, I've got like probably some of the best memories I have, of Halloween night, doing various things, so it's a special time, I think.
Yeah.
Nothing satanic about it.
No. I love even before I
go sacrifice children to the devil.
Even before I became a little older and interested in horror and stuff like that, Halloween was my favorite just as a kid. I just loved going out and getting candy and everything. I loved it.
You get candy, the weather's cooler,
I had some rough weather Halloweens.
Did you really? Wow.
Oh God, yes. I can remember.
Snow? A lot of snow?
No, I mean flurries. I've had Halloweens with some flurries. But I mean, if it's cold enough for flurries, it really messes up your costume. It's not much fun wearing a costume when your parents make you put a winter jacket on over it. Like, come on, Mom. Right. And sometimes just maybe a really cold rain or something.
Yeah, that sucks.
But I was out late last night, past midnight. I went downtown, and it was a nice, crisp, cold evening. It's finally, I've been looking for. It's still warm, a lot warmer in the days than it would have been when I was younger. We still have like shorts and t-shirt kind of weather in the daytime, but it's finally cooling off at night at least, and fairly cool evening out there now. It's gonna pour rain later tonight though, but finally getting some of that crispness into the air that I like so much. I don't know. I mean, I don't mean to sound finicky or uppity about this, but I've always been very conscious of air and air quality. Especially after probably when I was 16 and I went to Mexico, because I realized the whole time I was in Mexico, even when I wasn't in the cities, when I was in beautiful tropical beaches with white sand and blue water, I still couldn't fucking breathe. The air was hot and thick, and I couldn't stand it. And I've just really come to realize how good the air here is, and how maybe sometimes people take it for granted. Like, there's no smog index or anything like that, and we live right on the water. So I really get to feel it in the fall. There's a nice crispness to it. There's a nice, just very pure and nice and stuff. And
isn't Mexico City one of the most polluted?
Yeah, and I wasn't in Mexico City, but I was in other cities, I was in Merida and stuff like that. But even even when I was out, even in like nice tropical touristy locations, the air, it wasn't bad, but I didn't like it. It was too thick for me. I couldn't. It was too hot and thick. I don't know. It didn't have the. I don't know. Didn't feel fresh to me.
Well, they don't even have like catalytic converters or anything on their vehicles. They're just straight pumping smog out there.
Yeah.
Out of everything.
It's pretty
So,
bad.
we can do all we want to as far as conservation and recycling and everything else, but if other countries are just going to do shit like that, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
I guess our personal air quality will be a little better, but
Oh yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, I've been in some places like obviously New York City. I was in New York City in 2014 in the November. Man, it was warm. It was so warm. I was dying.
oh, really?
Yeah. Like I really enjoyed my time there, but that was another time where I really noticed the difference here. I couldn't believe how warm it was for November. Like I brought like jackets and stuff. I wore them like maybe the last 2 days I was there. It was super warm. I was there. And of course, it being New York City, one of the most densely populated places, all these smells and garbage and everything. There's not really any getting away from it. All I could think was, this must be awful in the summer.
Wow.
I might have died there in the summer. It's not like Halifax can't smell bad sometimes. Sometimes the harbor smells fucking awful.
Yeah.
But
people didn't piss and shit in the streets. That would help too.
Yeah. But they do in New York.
They do. They do in quite a few cities.
Ugh. Yeah, but it's a cold night now, but I've got my window open just a bit now to enjoy some of that air. I don't know. I'm always a big fresh air type of person. And I know some people are kind of annoyed by that. Maybe because they just don't feel it the way I do. I just am more sensitive to it. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to show up at your house and complain about the air quality.
Someone open a fucking window in here?
Yeah. But I guess I'm just sensitive to that and stuff. And it's made me appreciate where I live a lot more because I've noticed, like, in a lot of places I've gone to, it's not as good. It's a good thing about Canada. It's like a big, wide open place.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to think of other stuff that I'll be watching in the coming days. Yeah, like you said, it'd be good to try to watch some stuff I haven't seen before. Although, whenever I look at the horror section on Netflix, it's always very bleak. It's just like a bunch of no-name stuff I've never heard of that just came out in like the last 2 years, and I'm not really desperate enough for horror to check it out and stuff. As I've said, I've made some, they weren't awful, but definitely some decisions I regretted on the watching front with a few of those guys. Like, oh, what the fuck, let's give it a shot. And I'm like, oh, this is awful. And it seems like they really tighten their grip in October, too. You'd think in October they'd release more horror, but instead it's like they take it away. I don't know. It's too early right now for TCM, but eventually TCM starts showing some good stuff. Actually, in the next few days, I don't know if I'll watch any, but just at least show that's kicking off. They're showing a bunch of Lon Chaney movies, like from the 20s, the next few days. The only one I've seen is sort of his famous one, the Phantom of the Opera one, which is pretty good. It's pretty scary for what it is. I think most people are just so used to like thinking of like Phantom of the Opera as a musical, they forget that it's actually kind of a scary story. But,
I've actually never seen. I think Argento did Phantom of the Opera. I've never seen his version.
I haven't either, but I've seen the weird horror one with Robert Englund.
Yeah,
it has its moments.
Is it okay? Yeah, I've heard it's okay.
It's okay.
Just gonna look.
It's not going to wow you or anything, but it's certainly worth a watch. It was kind of an interesting thing to do at the time. I think it came out in like '89 or something like that. So it made sense. He was kind of at the height of his popularity as Freddy.
Yeah.
And they were sort of paying tribute to a story that is sort of its original roots are kind of grounded in horror, even though in many ways it's a gothic romance. It still has its horror elements to it and stuff. So, they point out some of that. And obviously they up it a bit, like there's some grisly killings and stuff in it.
I still need to watch The Wailing. That's one that's on my list.
The Korean one? Yeah, me too. Maybe I'll finally do it. Because, maybe going into November we'll do some more of the Korean. We were talking about doing some Korean horror, Korean crime.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Sounds good to me.
So maybe once Halloween's over and done with, we'll move into that direction. And I'll finally watch The Wailing, which I've heard very good things about, and it seems very interesting. I like the setup. It sounds pretty cool. But as we said, it's kind of a longish movie, so I had to be sort of in the right, have the time, and also maybe be in the right frame of mind to watch
Right.
it. But as I've said last week, I'm thinking about long movies a lot lately, just because of the festival and stuff. So probably a fairly long movie is somewhere in my future, just for the hell of it. It's kind of different too. The
Yeah.
Wailing is considered horror. I think how many horror movies are by nature fairly short, so like a 2.5 hour horror movie, that's pretty different. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's a different sort of horror movie, but still, it's an interesting idea.
It's supposed to be good. I don't really know a whole lot about it.
I just know basically the setup, more or less. But it sounds really interesting, so yeah, I should really get around to it in the next few days because I've always been interested.
Mhm. Yeah. I usually hop on those Korean films a little faster.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna, for the sake of the month, I assume they're still there, but I remember a few weeks ago on my Netflix, at least, a Thai horror comedy series called Ah My Ghost popped up. There's like four of them. They look stupid as hell, but I think I'll
Uh,
probably try to watch one or two of them just to see what they're like. Asian comedy is always interesting. Now it's Asian horror comedy. Well, that's a whole other thing.
the Mon Mon Monsters is on your Shutter. That's where I
Yes,
watched it.
that's right.
I think it's Japanese.
Yeah, I think so. I'll check that out.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember that you watched it and you liked it. Pretty cool. Yeah, I have to say, of the different subgenres in horror, that's kind of where we differ. And maybe I need to get more into monster stuff. I haven't watched too much monster stuff, creature features. They've never really ranked high for me. But then again, there's a lot I haven't seen, so
Mhm.
it might be
That's
worth exploring.
pretty much the opposite for me. That's like a go to
Yeah,
subgenre.
yeah. No, there's a lot I haven't seen, even some of the more prominent ones. So
Um,
they had sort of
what's
a weird comeback in the 2000s too, when horror was going. You had
yeah
things like, I don't know, Slug or Slither or something like that, and Eight-Legged Freaks.
yeah yeah. I don't mean like Sharknado type stuff. I'm not really into that.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
that's more like campy type stuff. But Slither is good. Have you not seen Slither?
No,
The James Gunn.
I know what it
That's
is.
you would probably
But
like that.
yeah, I like the Blob. The Blob's one of my favorites as far as creature features go.
The '90s remake
Both.
or the
I like both
original.
versions. I like them both kind of equally. Really, I think they're both very
Hmm.
good. They both have their strengths.
Yeah, stand out to me to recommend to you, but I can't think of any right off.
No, it's
Um,
okay.
uh,
But I haven't seen, speaking of Polanski, Knife in the Water in a long time. This movie carries over some things from that, particularly sort of stuff about, I guess, some sort of sexual overtones and themes, and I guess the way sex can sometimes drive us. Um, I don't remember exactly what happens in that movie. They go out sailing with the guy, hitchhiker. It has some things sort of in common with the thriller we watched, Dead Calm, in that it's got like an unknown person and a couple out on the water and stuff. But Polanski always had an edge to his films, which I've always appreciated. I like most of his work.
have you seen any of his more recent films?
No, I don't think so. Carnage. I've seen Carnage, which I liked. Did you see Carnage?
I don't think so.
I think it's based on a play, which makes sense because the whole thing is just very talky. It's just people in a room talking, more or less. It's got John C. Reilly in it, and
I have seen it. Yeah, I was going to say I've seen one with John C. Reilly. I liked a lot.
yeah, that was pretty good, Carnage. So that's you know what I've never seen? Pianist.
Is
Never seen
what?
it. The Pianist.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it all the way through either,
I've
but
never seen it. You know, big, huge movie and everything. It's not like I wasn't interested. I don't know. It's just one of those movies that I never saw. But yeah,
I need
even
to
some of
watch it.
his like lesser movies. Like I like The Ninth Gate a lot. The Ninth Gate is a heavily flawed movie, but
Wow.
I still really like it. In fact, I really
I
like to
forgot
watch
that was
that this
him.
month. Yeah, I really enjoy that movie. It's not great by any means. It certainly doesn't have the punch of his earlier films. To me, he's really sort of trying to recapture his glory in that movie and mostly failing. but you know, it's good. I think
Um,
Chinatown is overrated, but certainly a
Me
good
too.
movie.
I think it's so overrated.
But I
Um,
like Frantic a lot. Frantic is super overlooked. Nobody ever talks about Frantic. I'm a Harrison Ford fanboy, so of course I like it. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of Frantic. To me, I'd be like, don't watch Taken, watch Frantic. But people want more action. I guess I understand why they'd watch Taken. But I mean, I don't like. I watched the first Taken. I couldn't even get through the second one. Never saw the third. People love those movies. They think they're spectacular. They don't do it for me. I like Liam Neeson a lot. He's cool, but I don't know.
well, I think the first movie's good. I haven't seen the other two. I own them. I bought the trilogy because I wanted to watch them all, but I never got around to it. I mean, Liam Neeson's old to be playing an action star, isn't he?
Oh yeah, and that was what was funny about it because that was sort of him starting as an action star.
Yeah.
Like he'd been around forever, but he'd never done actiony roles really. The closest thing to it was where he would play mentors to action guys, like in Kingdom of Heaven, Batman Begins, and um, what's it called? Phantom Menace. Those movies have action, but he's the mentor to the action guy.
Right.
He's Obi-Wan's mentor, he's Batman's mentor, and he's that knight guy that Orlando Bloom plays mentor. He wasn't the actual action guy. They finally turned him into an action guy when he was like in his late 50s. And yeah, like that's just what's funny. We make fun of like the old guard of action stars and how old they've gotten and they're still doing it. Well, at least they started young. He started old.
He really churned him out too. I mean, he was making like four of those a year
Yeah.
that went to the theaters too.
They were big movies and big successes. And I don't know, I thought it was fine. But as I've mentioned a few times, I've seen it since, but in high school, I saw Polanski's production of Macbeth from 1971, which is always
Mhm.
called the Playboy production because it was actually
Right.
backed by Playboy. And it's a good version of Macbeth. There's quite a few, obviously, Macbeths out there. I don't know if it's the best one. And then there's movies that like do the Macbeth plot, like we did in our film series, because that's the Masters of Film. That was our Kurosawa film, Throne of Blood, which is kind of like a retelling of that plot in feudal Japan. But yeah, I've seen a lot of Polanski's stuff, but no, I haven't seen. I guess is Carnage just last? I mean, he did something in
Oh,
2017.
he's been busy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why
Well,
people are talking about him again.
Venus and Fur and based on a true story.
Right?
I'm not familiar with any of these.
No, they're both French films. I think. Yeah, Venus and Fur is based on a play. I've heard the name, but I haven't read it. But yeah, he even won an award at the Cannes Film Festival for that one. He won Best Director. Yeah, so he'll always
Have you?
bad. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, have you seen the Oliver Twist from 2005?
Yeah, but I really don't remember it. Saw it once. I really don't remember it. It just made no impression, I guess, because there's pretty much nothing I recall about it.
It's kind of forgettable. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I guess that's why, right?
I mean, and it is what it is. But I mean, how many times can you tell the same story?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, for me, I always think of the '68 musical Oliver. For me, that's always the definitive telling. Which, even though it's a musical, is still very poignant in a lot of his portrayals. For instance, Bill Sikes is fucking terrifying in that movie. That's a musical, and he's terrifying. People always think of musicals as lighthearted and fun. Not that one. I mean, sure, it has its moments, but yeah, that's always sort of the definitive telling of that story for me. But yeah, I mean, he would do Repulsion. Fearless Vampire Hunters was more of a kind of just a joke movie, and it was, I guess, going to be kind of a stepping stone for Sharon Tate.
Yeah,
And it's a fun enough movie. And then he followed it right up with Rosemary's Baby, which is many people call a masterpiece.
yeah, yeah. I would call it a masterpiece.
Yeah, Macbeth, Chinatown. I've never seen Tess. Tess is one that gets talked about a
I
lot.
haven't either.
It gets talked about a lot. Won some awards. Won Best Picture, or no, it didn't win Best Picture, but it was nominated for Best Picture. I really don't know too much about it either. I mean, I know it's a drama.
Until recent years, regardless of whether he was guilty or did whatever he did,
Right.
there was all kinds of apologists in Hollywood for him. And I would say until the Me Too movement really hit strong. I mean, you remember that, right? There was always people touting that, oh man, Polanski, oh, who cares what he did? And now
I
we've
well,
completely turned cheek on that.
yeah, I don't know. I think he has a much more defensible and position to be an apologist for. Honestly, I might even be an apologist for him. And I don't
Um,
love him or love his work, although I do like some of his stuff. I just feel like when the supposed, well, not supposed, or I'm not gonna, but when the victim herself, for decades, keeps saying that it didn't affect her in any negative way, it didn't bother her or upset her, and the only thing that had a negative impact on her life was everybody finding out about it and the circus that came. How am I
right.
supposed to feel about it? All she's ever said is, she just wishes that no one ever knew because what happened, just wrecked her life and messed everything up. But the actual act, whatever happened, occurred between him and her. Obviously, not ideal, not a good thing, but she was, you know, and I do think there is something to be said about that. And it's a very tricky thing with minors and stuff like that. But for when you have adults yelling in a minor's face, telling them they don't know how to feel and telling them that they're wrong, screaming at her that she's a victim of rape, she doesn't understand what happened to her. It was rape, rape, rape. You're a victim, victim, victim. And she's saying, "Well, yeah, I mean, I feel okay." And they're like, "No, no, you don't. You don't know how fucked up and messed up you are." I don't really like that. And the other thing with him, at least, is like all these other guys, there's always this huge pattern of behavior and there's always this long history. He's never done anything even close to it since or before, either that or he's covered up really well. Pretty much all these other guys, there's a long pattern and people aren't shocked or anything like that. So I'm not defending what he did or the act exactly, but I'm just saying I think it's really blown out of proportion and I don't think it is fair to compare it to a lot of this other stuff that gets brought up. He's not some guy with a long history of abusing women or putting them in positions or anything like that. And like I said, she was the victim, I guess, but she doesn't feel like a victim. She's more upset about the aftermath than the actual act.
Well, you're talking about the statutory rape allegations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but country, I mean, I think that's really what's worse than anything. I mean, because regardless of whether or not she was on board for it, you know,
Well, even if she was, it is still wrong. I certainly concede that. It's still wrong. Too young.
but I
So
mean, there's also been other allegations of rape from films he made years ago,
I've heard some stuff, but I
in
don't.
other
I don't.
countries.
Nothing.
I mean,
Nothing's been substantiated. I don't know. Like I said, I
I
believe a
mean,
lot of these people and stuff. I don't really believe that. So I don't know. Maybe people get upset and call me being an apologist, but no, I don't think of Polanski as a rapist. I don't.
well, I mean, he's a sex criminal. I mean, that's how he would be
Well,
categorized.
he has to be, right? He did a plea deal and everything.
Um, but people want to let him come back over here like scot free, and I'm glad the judge is not letting that happen. because I mean he hasn't been held accountable for his actions, regardless of whether or not you agree with what he did or not. I mean, he broke the law, you know.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But no, I don't.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. I don't want to go comparing to like Victor Salva, which is what I hear all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't. Statutory rape is not, the same as molestation, but I mean, you get a fine line there where the kid's so young, do they know the difference?
Yeah. No, it was definitely wrong. Definitely shouldn't have done it with her. Regardless
I mean,
of
how old was this girl?
she was like 13, way too young. Way too young.
She was 13. Yeah, dude, that's messed up, man.
Yeah, it's messed up, and I'm not defending that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, yeah, it's too young and everything like that. But I'm not going to tell her how to feel. And I just think that people, and her, her mom flipped out, as you would expect a mother would and stuff. But then she had a bunch of people screaming at her that he was this awful thing and she was his victim and rape, and that became her life. That became her life.
How was they even in a position to where that could happen? I mean, I guess she's 13. She's not a child or a baby anymore. But
she shouldn't, but she still shouldn't be going over to a house alone with him to film. It was Jack Nicholson's house, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it was Jack Nicholson was away on vacation, but it was at his house.
Was she going to be in a film or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was taking photos for before a film. He obviously took advantage, and she's obviously too young. I'm not disputing any of that.
Yeah.
But no, I don't get my pitchfork out for him the same way I do other guys. And I mean, it's a case by case basis and stuff. Because I mean, I think there's people out there now that have never been, convicted of anything that have done way worse.
I'm sure.
And yeah, I mean, in some ways it screwed up his life, and in other ways, he just sailed on. So
Well, I mean, hell, his wife was brutally murdered in his house. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
And
I'm not trying to use that as an excuse, but he was probably a little. And I'm not saying, oh, that's why he did it, but you can imagine him being a little messed up after that. Not saying, oh, that just makes it okay, because it doesn't. It doesn't. But yeah, I mean, one of those.
It's really a fucked up shit to go on for one guy, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
it really is.
Whenever you hear his name mentioned, it's really, you don't even talk about his films first. You talk about what happened to him and what he did, or you know, and then you mention the films as an afterthought when he's one of the probably more well-known directors throughout the world.
Anyway, I like him as a filmmaker. I probably wouldn't like him as a person. He certainly has an amount of arrogance about him, for sure, that I think would turn me off. But I do like a lot of his films, even some of the lesser ones. Like I said, the Ninth Gate is really nothing at all, but I like it. I don't know. It's an enjoyable film for me.
Based on the graphic novel series, is that right?
Was it? If that's the case, I don't know.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
No, maybe you're thinking of From Hell.
That's it.
Which also came out around the same time with Johnny Depp. Yeah, that's based on From Hell, which that's another movie that is in no way compares to because that's one of the best graphic novels of all fucking time, and there's no way it could. But I still enjoy the movie, even though they make all these changes. It's another one of those movies where I should be really mad, and I'm not. I'm just like, yeah, okay, it's kind of fun. Because yeah, From Hell is just so layered and complex and everything. Oh, it's one of those it's one of the few graphic novels that I do try to force on people. I don't try to tell people you have to read this. You have to, But that's one of the ones where I'm like, yes, read From Hell. Oh my god, because it's so many. It's on my list, and especially I need to pick it up. Yeah, and I know you'd like it. You'd love it. True crime. I mean, you know what it is. It's a take on the Jack the Ripper thing. It basically follows the same solution that was in this book written in the 70s called Jack Ripper: The Final Solution, where it postulates that William Whitby Gull, a knight at the time, was responsible. There's pretty much no chance of that being true, and Moore himself acknowledges it. But it makes for a very compelling story. This whole idea that the murders were part of a conspiracy to cover up an illegitimate royal baby. Oh, it's great stuff. It's just so good.
The Ninth Gate is based on a novel.
Okay. I just liked it because it involves like the devil and he's like a rare book dealer or something like that. I don't know. I haven't even seen a bunch of it. I haven't even seen it in a bunch of years. It's not like I'm not going to say, oh, it's really good. It's not, but there's something about it that I enjoy, I suppose.
That was during a period of time when Johnny Depp's in a horror movie. I'm going to go watch it. So I saw both of those in the theater, and
it was during the time where like Johnny Depp was, still a pretty good actor and a big name.
Yeah.
Even the lesser stuff, I still enjoyed seeing him in, even when it wasn't that good. Like what? Just a few years later, he did that terrible, boring Stephen King one, Secret Window. Like that's a crap movie, but he's good in it. Like I like him.
Yeah. You can see that reveal coming a mile away.
Yeah, somewhere around 2006 or so. That's where he stopped doing movies that held any interest for me, I'd say.
Yeah. Still working really hard.
I think the Pirates franchise kind of ruined him.
Yeah.
It made him such a huge star, and I don't know. I mean, he was already a big star, but that seemed to like just catapult him even further. And I don't know. I still like the first two movies.
If he could just like tone down his wine budget, he can work less. But
he's another one of those guys that has to like live way up here. Like that's another thing. It's so easy to hate like these Hollywood people, right? Like, cause okay, you have a lot of money, more money than I'll ever have. But I mean, he's just another one of those guys that just has to spend so extravagantly.
I feel like he's batshit crazy.
A lot of them, I think they just become batshit crazy over time because they don't have to, like just today, Cameron posted in the feed some sort of article about like some batshit crazy thing that blonde, hold on, married to Coldplay, or
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow, like he it's in our feed. He posted something about some retarded thing that Gwyneth Paltrow had said. And I'm just thinking, this is what happens when you don't have to worry about stuff like work or money and stuff. You just sort of find retarded things to be... Sorry, I keep saying retarded. You keep finding stupid things to be interested in until you become like completely immersed in it and detached from reality. Look at... Did you see the thing Lindsay Lohan did the other day? Oh, this one, honestly, you do have to watch the video.
Okay.
I don't know what city she's in, but she's live streaming on like an Instagram or something. And she's filming herself following this family they're clearly foreign. She says they're Syrian. We have no idea. She says that they're Syrian refugees. And she's trying to get them... There's like a couple with two boys. And she's trying to tell them to give her the boys. We don't know if they understand or if they speak English or what. But they're kind of walking away from her. And she's saying, give me the boys. I can take them to the hotel room. He's like, you want to watch a movie on a TV or a computer? Huh? And like they're just sort of walking away. Then she starts doing a fake Arabic accent. And she starts saying weird stuff. She's like, this is not Arab. You're ruining Arab culture. And then she says, don't fuck... She says, don't fuck with Pakistan. Like, now she sounds like she's just harassing them racially. Then she actually, I think, tries to grab... She actually tries to, like, grab one of the kids. Then I think the mother comes into frame. You can't tell if she punches her or what, but she at least pushes her down. Then Lindsay Lohan falls down on like her butt, and then she cries into the camera and starts going, I'm so scared right now. Oh, she also accused them of human trafficking. And I'm sure you
sounds like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. The best part is probably her just doing this awful accent. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing, Lindsay? At one point she goes, don't fuck with Pakistan, or something like that. You're like, what? Just following some family and harassing the shit out of them, and then crying. Oh my god! You'd say she's lost it, but I mean that's just normal Lindsay Lohan for like the past decade plus, really. Again, she hasn't been a success as actor at all, but she still has enough money to do this. Just pop up in random countries doing bullshit.
Where was she? Do you know?
I don't know. She was in Paris at one point. I don't know if this is confirmed as is in Paris or somewhere else. But yeah, you can find that pretty easily. Because she posted it herself at first. She actually posted this. She thought this was something like her followers should see. Her acting like a lunatic.
Oh, man. Like, is it... what purpose?
I have no idea. She thought she was going to help the kids. Like, she thought they were homeless and she could help them. When they wouldn't let the kids come with her, she accused them of human trafficking. And then she got pushed down, and then she started crying. She's like, I'm so scared right now. It's really funny. But the
Oh,
best
man.
part to
I've
me
heard
is
some.
probably when she just starts talking, like she's talking English the whole time. We don't know if they understand English or not. But then she just puts on this fake, like, Middle Eastern accent. So bad.
Like that's going to help them understand it better.
Yeah. At one point she says, "You're ruining Arab culture," or something like that. She goes, "This is not Arab. You're ruining Arab culture." Then she goes, "Don't fuck with Pakistan." Like, what?
What
So
does
offensive.
she know about any of those things?
Nothing.
Oh my god! What is it about these celebrities that feel like make them feel like shit's their business? Like
And that they know better than other people.
exactly. Like there's teams of people that are much smarter than you
Yeah.
and more capable than you working on solving the problem.
It just all comes with fame, right? Like, even though it doesn't make any sense, it's like it's some sort of weird disconnect that they aren't understanding. They're like, people like me, I'm famous, and yet, yeah, they like your work as an actor in movies and film, and yet they connect that to other things. They must think I'm brilliant. They must think I have great insight and I, understand complex political situations in global like, seriously, like, they seem to think that like people really like me. Yeah, they liked you in your fucking movie playing a character. They don't like what you think is going on in the Middle East. They don't like your like. But honestly, I think that's what it is. I think the fact that they have fame gives them this weird false sense where they think that the fame is for something other than what they're famous for.
Right. She should have said Freaky Friday. That would have totally put them
Yeah,
on board.
I know. She
Take
should have
my
been like, "Hey,
children.
Freaky Friday, Herbie Fully Loaded." Oh man, I guess she was like at her absolute worst during Herbie Fully Loaded. I guess there's all sorts of stories of her being like awful on the set of that, like just drunk all the time and
Man,
fucking things
she's
up.
like nobody now, and she's still awful on the set. That's why she can't get any work
Yeah,
because she's fucking horrible to work with.
yeah.
Like, oh man, I've listened to podcasts with people that talk about working with her. Like, this is I Know Who Killed Me, and that was probably 4 or 5 years ago now.
I've seen that. That's like
But
2007.
like they could not get her to go to work. Like they could not get her to come to set. And like this was after she had already fallen out of the graces
Yeah,
of
yeah.
you know.
That's what's weird. She was like famous for about 2 years, really.
Yeah.
From like 2003, 2004 ish, she was kind of a star on the rise. Then it all hit the fan, and ever since then, it's been like talking about her having various comebacks that don't work. I remember she always did Saturday Night Live a few years ago. Oh, look, she's poking fun at herself. Like, I'm thinking, no, this isn't over by a long shot. This is going to look even worse in hindsight.
Was like legitimately famous for about 2 years, and then like infamous for like 2 years after that.
Yeah, infamous for the next decade since,
Yeah, I mean, as a being a train wreck.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
mean, she's been like known as a train wreck since when? Like 2005.
Yeah, like 10. God, that's a long time ago.
She's only 32, so she's been a train wreck since her early 20s.
Wow.
You know?
Can't believe she's that old.
I know. So you think most of the time, as a train wreck, she was a very young person too. Oh, Lindsay. I don't know. I like her in Mean Girls. That's the one good thing I can say about her. I like the film Mean Girls, and she's pretty good in it. That's it. That's the absolute beginning and ending of my positive feelings for Lindsay Lohan. Really, my other positive feelings only extend to her as the butt of a joke. There's some good Lindsay Lohan jokes out there.
Like fire crotch.
Oh my god.
That's what Paris Hilton always used to call her, I think.
Yeah, and then like Bruce Willis asked Kevin Smith if that was true. Not Kevin Smith. Well, Kevin Smith thought he was talking to him, but he was talking to, of course, Justin Long. But Kevin Smith heard it. Like Kevin Smith was talking to Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis walked up to him and said, "Hey, Kevin, how you doing?" And then Justin Long walked up behind Kevin. Kevin didn't know he was there, and he's like, "So isn't it true that they call her Firebush?" And Kevin Smith was like, I don't know." And he's like, I was asking him." And Justin Long's like, "Oh, yeah," because Justin Long was in Fully Loaded with her.
Right. And he totally would know.
He would totally know. I don't know what he said. But Kevin Smith was just like, "I thought he was asking me." And I was like, "I have no idea. I've never met her." Kevin Smith looks so weird now. Some people just don't look good. Now he's not fat. It's so weird.
He was not fat before. Like, he lost a lot of weight a few years ago, but since he had the heart attack or whatever, he's lost like another like 50 pounds or whatever.
Yeah, he looks
He's like
odd.
rail then.
Looks
Look
very
at
odd.
Jonah Hill, man. Jonah Hill has that new show. He looks so weird.
What show does he have? I want to see. I haven't seen him.
It's
I know Jonah Hill's
Manic
weight is just okay. Oh yeah, that's on Netflix. Yeah, I'll check that out. Looks kind of interesting.
with Emma Stone. Yeah, I want to check it out, but he's one of those guys that just doesn't. I think he looks really unhealthy. Is what he looks like to me.
Probably supposed to for the show, but you're right. Yeah.
I mean,
Some people just don't look right, especially when they can't really lose it. They still have kind of a fat face, and then they
yeah,
have like a thinner body, and you're like, what's going on here?
yeah, he lost a lot of weight, and I think he gained a good bit of it back, and then I guess he lost it
Yeah,
again.
his weight fluctuated like crazy.
So
Like
it's
that was
like
always the joke too about like what does Jonah Hill weigh now and stuff like that. Yeah.
it's just like do a bunch of crack for a few weeks, and the weight just falls off.
Who knows?
I mean, that's what he looks like. He looks like a crackhead.
Highly possible.
Um,
Anyway, I'll have to wrap a bit earlier because I gotta go in a little while. But
that sounds good.
any sort of final thoughts on our film Repulsion?
That's a great film. I'd say, obviously, if you've watched this long, you've probably seen the film or don't care to anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I like it a lot.
We
It's,
spoiled it well.
I think I like the Tenet and Rosemary's Baby both more.
Mm-hmm.
Quite good.
I like Rosemary's Baby
Great
more.
trilogy to watch together.
I don't know about the Tenet. Maybe I'm on the fence about the Tenet. I'd have to see it again to fully judge. I know I like Rosemary's Baby best, but yeah, if I was going to say, list my favorite psychological thrillers, this is on there. As I said, I feel like a lot of the times that gets thrown around, or sometimes you see, as I said, psychological thrillers where they kind of just go too far and it kind of becomes silly. They're like, oh, this person's really crazy. Look at I don't know. Sometimes I think it's kind of hokey. I like how they didn't do that. Also, maybe the limited budget was kind of a reason for it, but it also worked. As I said, I like kind of the limited effects. They don't go really very far or over the top and stuff. Just some camera angles, some close-ups, some cracking walls. But and then the big one, of course, is the hands coming out of the wall. Sure, but I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, a really great job of sort of how you can do a kind of a minimalistic movie with only a few characters and a limited location and stuff, and still tell a really engrossing, enthralling story. Yeah, I like how I don't know, I just find the flow a lot better than in May. I thought May kind of had lulls and then sped up too much at the end. I think this movie has more of an even sort of flow going throughout it as you watch our characters descend into madness. I mean, that's almost a genre to itself. There's quite a few movies where we get to see a character descend into madness. To me, this might be my favorite one, at least the favorite one I can think of. And yeah, I like it just for a lot of its minimalistic moments. Looked great in black and white, good use of light and shadow. But I was going to say, I looked for it this time because I read about it in preparing for the show. I read that the Polanski himself can be seen towards the end of the movie as somebody walking into the building. He's dressed as a woman, apparently, but I couldn't pick him out.
I couldn't either.
I'll have to look again to see if I can see it. But that's kind of funny. I think what he's doing there is kind of like making fun of the Hitchcock thing, where Hitchcock would often be in things. So, but yeah, not too long ago I watched the shitty Psycho remake, so I'll have to watch the real Psycho soon too, just to sort of cleanse
I can't believe you watched that. I can't believe you watched
that. That movie is
that.
just it's such a sterile, empty movie. Everything about it feels dead. There's no life in that movie. It's just, I don't know, it's hard. It almost feels like a movie within a movie to me. Everything feels so fake and feels like, I don't know, it's weird.
It's bad all the way around. I mean, I love that director, don't get me wrong, but I don't really like Drugstore Cowboy guy. Can't think of his name right now.
Right, we talked about him. Yeah, we talked about him.
But I like virtually everything he's done besides that. We also did the one with Keanu Reeves.
River's Edge.
The one he did.
No, not River's Edge.
No.
Sorry, that's the other career series.
The one where
My Own Private Idaho.
My Own Perfect Idaho.
My Own Private Idaho.
Private Idaho. I still can't think of the damn director's name, but
anyway, people know who we mean. see those
Yeah,
episodes.
Vince Vaughn, I think, is the worst thing about that. Anne Heche, I'm okay with.
She's fine. I mean, it's not that important of a role, really.
Right.
She's a murder victim. But yeah, Vince
And she
Vaughn.
does. She does kind of look like Janet
Yeah,
Leigh too, a little bit.
she
So.
does. Vince Vaughn, as I've said for many years, I've always disliked Vince Vaughn as a comedian, but I actually like him in serious roles. This was back when he was doing a serious role, but it's not a very good one.
He was in season 2 of. My God,
True Detective.
True Detective. I cannot think tonight.
He's good. He's good.
And I really liked him in season 2.
Yeah.
He had a serious role there.
You're not the only person to like season 2. I mean, again, I think season 1's way better, but I don't think season 2's bad. I think season 2, I respect season 2 for not just trying to do something like season 1. They went in a completely different direction. The only problem with season 2 is too much of a downer. I wish all those characters didn't die. I wish a couple more of them lived. Like the only one that lives is I can't remember
woman, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of her name. She's in Mean Girls too.
Oh, I am not on my game tonight.
Rachel McAdams.
There you go.
Anyway, yeah, spoilers on that too. She's the only one of the main characters who lives in that. I felt bad that that all the others died. I didn't think they all had to die.
Colin Farrell, man, gosh, that was hard to watch.
He's a really good actor. He's such an annoying person, but he's a really good actor. He's always been a really good actor. I guess he's kind of his own worst enemy, I think, because he could, be doing what. I mean, I still like that he picks interesting roles. Like he's in that movie with the
Killing a Sacred Deer.
Yeah, Killing a Sacred Deer, which is a really interesting movie. Like he makes interesting stuff. But I always knew he was a good actor because years ago he was in that movie Tigerland, where I thought he was spectacular. And that's like 2000. That's like forever, almost 20 years ago. And he's so good in that. So I always knew he was a good actor. And then he would just sort of, ebb and flow from this role to that. But he's a really good actor when he turns it on. And yeah. So
he's a great bullseye, I think. Bullseyes.
the super Irish bullseye. It doesn't look like Bullseye is going to be in season 3 of Daredevil. I can't believe it, unless they're just hiding it. Because I think now is the time. Like, I was really happy with the first 2 seasons because I thought, you're right, don't just put Daredevil Bullseye in right away too soon. But season 3 seems right. Maybe he will be. I've only seen one sort of teaser trailer for it. I have to get through Iron Fist. I haven't even watched Iron Fist yet. But that's one of the things I've shunted to the side while I concentrate on Halloween-y things. So I don't know what's going to happen. But I love Daredevil so much that I have to be prepared. So I'll make it work. Anyway, don't want to take us down too many further avenues. So I really have to go to the bathroom and some other stuff. So we'll finish up here, guys. We don't know what next week is this time. We did try to at least give you a bit of a heads up about Rosemary's Baby, about Repulsion. But we'll let you know pretty soon. We're a little more on the ball, I think, for October, at least going forward. And see, getting some consistency, not missing weeks. Hopefully we can keep that going. So, yeah, it'll probably be another sort of horror-type movie. Maybe not straight horror, but, yeah, maybe something like this, psychological horror or whatever. We will confer and talk about that in the next few days, and we'll let you know when we can. But, yeah, throughout October, expect, some dark stuff. So thanks very much for watching, guys. And that'll do it for Repulsion. So until next week, that's Jay. I'm Cole. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Peace out.
Thanks.